Ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to talk about one of the craziest One Piece chapters we've had in quite a while in Chapter 1125. We have a lot of things to talk about, mainly to celebrate the death of one Saint J. Garcia Saturn. He will not be missed. And to help me break this all down, I'm here with the Hidden Island. How you doing, my man?
Hey, what's up, Dak? Rest in peace to Saturn. Well, not actually rest in peace. Rest in... No. Sorry, I'm starting off strong here, okay?
Hey, that's
Peace
what
out,
we're here
Saturn.
to do.
Saturn, no one's gonna miss you. Good riddance. Hello, everybody. This is the Hidden Island. I'm happy to be here on Dak's stream. I'm happy to talk about the new chapter, and I'm very excited. Thank you for having me, Dak.
Oh, hey, I'm happy you're here, man. And not only are we celebrating the death of one Saint J. Garcia Saturn, we're also here to celebrate the birth of the next Elder Star, Figarland Garling. And I even got the aviators because my guy Garling knows how to style. And also,
Wait.
you guys see, you got them. You got
I have
them ready.
aviators too.
Hey, maybe it's an aviator stream. I've been wearing these more regularly. And what's funny is the thumbnail is Garling taking off the sunglasses. So here we are.
There you go.
So Hidden, I want to get your reaction right away on just what you think about that whole sequence of having, we saw a Gorosei die, and remotely from Imu, which we got to talk about what those powers are, but also Garling becoming an Elder Star. Just what's your reaction to all that?
A lot of thoughts. First off, I'm wondering if, Imu can give these powers and take them away at will from a distance, just like remotely. That means that I'm assuming all the Gorosei transformations are given directly by Imu, which would tell me that it's not from a devil fruit. Now, I know I was actually checking the wiki very recently for my own theory on the Gorosei, and I saw that the wiki lists their transformations as devil fruit powers, which, correct me if I'm wrong, has that been confirmed in the story that they're devil fruit powers at all, or is the wiki just wrong?
No, the wiki is wrong, and I would actually say we have strong evidence they are not devil
fruit
powers.
They are not, right?
Yes.
Because now that Imu's taken away the power like that, like that's not how devil fruits work. You can't just suck the power out of somebody like that. So
yep.
I'm assuming
unless you're Blackbeard, maybe, sort of. But anyways.
But yeah, it's like I don't know. I kind of think these are powers granted by Imu directly. They're not devil fruit abilities, and then because of that, it makes me wonder: was Garling, in whatever meeting he had with Imu just recently, was Garling granted a power? Does Garling have his own monster transformation now that we have yet to see, that he just acquired as Saturn was taken out? And then the next question I have is, does that mean he's the Gyuki now, or does he have a totally new demon or monster that he is? Because personally, I'm hoping he's not the Gyuki. I hope it's something brand new. I would love to see whatever monstrosity Garling turns into. But
that's the first thing I want to talk about. So, and by the way, everyone, I did not share the script at all with Hidden. I mean, he knew we were talking about the chapter, but what you just brought up, I was like, all right, at some point we have to talk about that.
Yeah.
And I want to start off with it because I actually have a really good idea for it that my chat liked, and I wanted to do a main channel video on it, and maybe in the future I will, but I am more than happy to share it here because I don't know if that video will happen. Or for all I know, it'll get revealed in like a week because Oda's just cooking at this point. But first thing I want to say is I pray that it is not the Gyuki. I'm done with that thing. We don't need that anymore. My thought, a lot of people brought up him being a werewolf because he's tied to the moon, right? And so my thought right away was like, well, we've kind of had werewolves with Sulong form a little bit. Like, it's obviously a werewolf allegory there. And we also have Jabra. Yep, yeah. Jabra has a wolf fruit, and he's in CP0, and he's actually like the third strongest CP0 guy, at least among the CP9 crew. And so I'm like, well, he's getting really overshadowed. But I was thinking, okay, what if there's something close to that, but it's more special? And so the thought that I got was Fenrir, because you think about Garling probably being Shanks' dad, and Shanks has a lot of Norse ties already.
Elbaf.
So right there, we also, Elbaf is a big focus, and actually Saturn, before he died, was like, no, forget Elbaf, we have other things to worry about. And what if, like, Garling's gonna have the opposite take, like, nope, we gotta go. Like, I'm going to Elbaf, and so then him being Fenrir would really fit in with that if that happens. But the other points that I think make the Fenrir idea really strong is that Shanks has a flaming sword, and Fenrir is almost always depicted being around fire or having fire type abilities. And Fenrir bit off Tyr's arm.
I was about to say,
and Tyr is definitely a Shanks parallel, right?
Yep.
And so you think about him being Fenrir pulling up, and maybe Shanks even sees it, and you have this kind of Norse mythos in a a nutshell. Like that, to me, that would be fire. Like literally because of the powers, but that would be just so cool to see.
I'm with you. I like that.
Okay.
I like that. The moment you mentioned the Fenrir thing, I was like, oh my god, it makes sense. Like,
I'm so glad.
Tyr thing, I was about to be like, yo, Shanks though, Tyr, with the arm, like yeah. I buy that.
Yeah, that the connections to Tyr is what really sells that for me. So I love that. Now I have heard other ideas, like I can't remember them off the top of my head, but there's a few moon related yokai that people have mentioned. But the thing for me is we've seen 3 of the Gorosei were yokai. Then one was like they're all yokai, like 3 are Japanese yokai. One was Chinese, right, and one's the sandworm, which is like contemporary sort of, right. And so I'm thinking, well, if we had 3 Japanese already, I bet you Oda's going to find a different place to go for these. And so that's why Norse mythos still lines up, because I'm like, that's one he hasn't used yet. And if there was one guy who was going to tie into a Norse mythological monster, Garling fits the bill perfectly. So
yeah, what's interesting, I was reading, let me see if I can find it. I was reading it in the trivia section of the Gorosei page on the wiki. And let me see if I can find it. Okay, so what's interesting about this, and this might help us determine what Garling might become, is how their transformations relate to their job, their title, right? Because each of the Gorosei has like a title, like the warrior god of science and defense, the warrior god of finance, etc. And all of their transformations are, in a way, ironic, because the things that they become reflect the exact opposite values of what their job is supposed to be. So, for example, Saturn, I'm just going to read this right off the wiki. Saturn is the godhead of science and defense, but an Ushi Oni is a merciless demon which has supernatural powers and can only be warded off by magic. Nusturo is the godhead of finance, but a Bakotsu is a skeletal undead creature associated with barrenness. Peter is the godhead of agriculture, but a sandworm is known for living in deserts. Mars is the godhead of the environment, but the Itsumade is notorious for bringing pestilence and appearing in times of famine and drought. Warcury is the godhead of justice, but the Hoki is a ferocious man-eating beast. So, the monsters they become they reflect and they have themes opposite to what the jobs that the Gorosei actually hold are.
Because the Gorosei aren't actually doing those jobs in a good way, right? That's the idea. Okay, I like that.
And it's also interesting. I'm not sure how true, because I haven't looked totally into it. This is going to be in my Gorosei video, so you're getting a little sneak peek on this. But the Gorosei are all based on real historical figures. That these real historical figures come from various countries. They don't line up exactly the way you would think. Like, for example, Venus Juro, clearly like a Wano type person.
Yeah, samurai.
But he's based on Gandhi, right? But let me just name off a few. Abraham Lincoln being the inspiration for Jupiter.
Yep.
Gandhi being the inspiration for Nusturo. Taisuke Itagaki being the inspiration for Mars. Gorbachev being the inspiration for Warcury, and Saturn being the inspiration for, or Giuseppe Garibaldi being the inspiration for Saturn. Now, what do all these 5 leaders have in common? They were all unifiers of their home countries. Let me explain. Abraham Lincoln reunified the United States after the Civil War. Mahatma Gandhi helped basically unify India and get them out of apartheid. Gorbachev, what do we know about Gorbachev? Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Taisuke Itagaki, I don't know too much about him, but I know that he founded like the first major political party in Japan. So he was like a big political unifier of people. And Giuseppe Garibaldi was the guy who unified Italy. So all these guys have in common is that they're all great political unifiers of their time.
They're nationalists, sort of, in the way of unifying their country.
Country behind under one banner.
But not globally, right?
Not globally, but for these leaders that were taken from real life unified their countries under one banner. And what do the Gorosei work for in One Piece? The world government, the unified world under one banner. So these people were chosen specifically. Their designs were chosen specifically from their real life inspirations to reflect their nature as being these unifying political leaders. But One Piece twists it because we don't look at Abraham Lincoln as an evil person. We look at him as a guy who, unified America, ended slavery, won the Civil War, blah, blah, blah. But in One Piece, it's kind of like a twist where these guys are evil, terrible people unifying the world, not for the purpose of peace or independence, but for the purpose of control. It's for the wrong reason. So I don't think Garling is necessarily based on a real-life historical figure because
that was gonna be my question.
I can't think of any whose head is shaped like a moon.
It's crazy, dude.
I don't know about that, but I'm just saying, like, I think Oda has chosen their designs, like their inspirations, as well as their monsters, very intentionally to do one thing. Like, they're based off of like real-life unifying political leaders. They have these specific jobs, and their monster transformation is the opposite of what their jobs are supposed to do. So these are like very big. I don't know what the word is to describe it, but I guess these characters subvert your expectations based on how they initially appear to you. So that's why I feel like the same principle might go for Garling, where we expect, I guess, a certain, like he's the science warrior god now, replacing Saturn. But do we know if Garling has any experience with science? Like, once again, this is a situation where his title is not going to actually match what he is, right? Because I don't think Garling is a scientist. He's a warrior, if anything.
Yeah.
And it could be that all the Gorosei don't really have any experience or talent in their specialty that they're supposed to have. So
it could just be their form. Like that's because like we have no reason to think Garling's like a scientist or like even if you go look at like Shanks, who he's probably related to. Shanks doesn't really show any propensity for that kind of stuff either, right? He just fights and is just a beast, right? So I think that kind of lines up because, like you said, with all the other forms. Now the trick is like for the defense science warrior god or whatever, with like the Gyuki, I feel like you could probably reason a lot of things to fit into the defense science and warrior god one, right? Like if you pick any kind of mystical creature in some way, that's going to kind of fly in the face of science in that regard. So I feel like for Garling, maybe that's why Oda even did it with Saturn. It's like this one's the easiest for me to sneak around, right? Like I don't like you said with Mars, he's like the environment god, but in his creatures tied to pestilence or whatever, that's like so specific. It's like for Saturn, it's like, we can do whatever for the defense science warrior god. So I like that. I was actually just searching major political figures that wore sunglasses all the time, and I was like, maybe that's what Oda's going for. And I didn't find anything on a quick search, but because the hair, I don't think anybody has that hair. You know what I mean? Like that.
No.
Like Saturn, he had the George Washington hair. Like we've seen the other styles in other places. Like we get their exaggerated forms of other stuff. I'm like, Garling's like that's just to tell us he's the moon. But then the sunglasses, maybe that's something.
I think it's more than just the moon, bro. If you look at him from the front,
it's a star.
Well, more than just a star. He's the world government logo.
Oh, you mean like 4
He's
points?
the cross. He's the 4 points.
That's interesting.
He's the 4 points, and then the head is at the center, and the moon is closest to the Earth, which is like Imu. Imu, if anything, is related to Gaia. If we're gonna make any connection there, so the idea that the moon be like, I think Garling is the one with the most, I guess, loyalty to Imu, or maybe he's kind of like I kind of look at Garling now as like Imu's auditor, almost in a way, where like. The Gorosei have been failing Imu. They failed at Egghead. So Imu's like, okay, I just had Garling execute another Celestial Dragon. This guy is my enforcer. I'm putting him in the room with the Gorosei to let them know you're on thin ice, all of you. And
Yep.
that's why I'm like, okay, Garling is the moon, and simultaneously, he is the logo, the emblem of Imu and the world government in the room with them, like, all right, guys, it's like a Lucci situation where Lucci was the enforcer. He even killed fellow CP agents. He had the world government scar on his back. So I think it's like the same situation with Garling. That's what the point of the head and like the perspective.
Yeah.
I think that's what Oda's going for.
Interesting. Yeah, because whenever I looked at it, I thought it was a star right away. Because, like, I mean, there's also the whole, saying, aim for the moon, land among the stars, which really it should be the opposite. Because, like, the stars are way past the moon. Like,
Yeah.
like, getting the star is way more impressive.
Yeah.
But regardless, I like that too. And we're going to get back on the Garling stuff, but just because you brought up the logo, I do want to really bring this up because this is an underrated point from this chapter, which I haven't seen enough people talking about, is the 4 wolves, right? The tequila, vodka, rum, and bourbon wolf.
Oh,
because you think about the world government logo, I think a lot of us have been thinking for a long time, oh, it's the 4 blues connected to the center, which is Marijois. But those 4 blue circles are connected with lines towards the center, and I think those lines are maybe now the wolves. Like, maybe we had a hint all along that, though they're building these things to connect Marijois to the different blues, so even whenever it floods, they have the red line to go all the way around, and then they can also go deep into the blues by taking each of the wolves, right? And so, to me, that when Ivanka brought that up, that was huge for me, because we had only known about Tequila Wolf until this point.
Yeah.
And I've had a few theories on it, but now knowing there's 4, that changes a lot. And the one thing that I think is really interesting, and I want to get your thoughts on all this, but specifically, one of them was Vodka Wolf, and we know that Kaido is from Vodka Kingdom. Is there a connection between those?
I think so, and I think that it could be the naming of the Vodka Kingdom as well as Vodka Wolf. I saw this. I don't want to take credit for this. I'm pretty sure I saw this post from Surgeon of Depth on Twitter, but he said the commonality between all the bridge names is alcohol. What does alcohol do on water? It floats. It floats to the top of water. So if these bridges were made, or spirit specifically floats on water. So if these bridges were made, with those names, they all share the name of some type of alcohol. And they were meant to basically deal with the fact that the sea level's rising. Then it could be that that goes for the kingdoms as well. Like Vodka Kingdom, there might be some intentionality behind Vodka Kingdom specifically being the one to build the bridge, if that's the case. And maybe there is a Tequila Kingdom that also... Wasn't there another kingdom that was also named after alcohol? Am I misremembering that?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but the thing that keeps ringing in my head about this is Shanks said, like, the best sake was from his hometown, and Shanks also, used to sing Bink Sake, even though we kind of learned that after the fact, but we know, like, in the past he did. So that's one thing I keep thinking about, is that Shanks probably knew this, but I don't know if there's another alcohol kingdom or not. I'm gonna try searching it.
There's let me actually, it'll probably be on the page for the Vodka Kingdom. Like, if you look in the trivia, I'm sure it'll be like, this is one of 2 kingdoms named after alcohol or something.
Well, there's Whiskey Peak, technically. Whiskey Peak. And then Liquor Island. I don't know what that... It just came up on the AI search.
I'm almost certain Vodka is not the first kingdom to be named after an alcohol in One Piece.
Yeah, Liquor Island is one of the Whole Cake Islands.
Okay.
In Tato Land. So there's one. There's also on Liquor Island, there's Gin Town.
Maybe I'm misremembering then, besides... Like, maybe these are towns and not kingdoms, but I'm almost certain.
We also had the Liquor Iron Ore.
Yeah.
Another.
Yeah, that's, there's a lot of references to liquor in One Piece. I feel like I should know this more because I'm like the bartender avatar guy, right? Like, that's my thing. But, like, I feel like
my name's Dak Sake, so I feel like between us,
man.
If there's anyone, if there's any 2 people that should have this unlock and key, it's us 2.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of sad that I don't know this. Maybe I was just thinking of Tequila Wolf. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. I don't know.
But regardless, I mean, the fact that I feel like Bink Sake is such an important thing to the story too. It just makes me wonder, like, do these wolves tie to Bink Sake somehow? And like I don't know. I'm not saying like Bink Sake is found there or anything, but is Oda flirting with all this alcohol stuff for a reason, right? Is it all supposed to tie to like some central message?
Well, it could be because of the floating on water thing. Because if one of the big secrets of the world is that the world is sinking, and there's all these themes about alcohol, like that could have some relation there, where it's like the song was not just about Bink and his sake and you know the adventuring on the seas, but the nature of, hey, the world's sinking. You know, maybe sake has something to do with how we avoid that, or like how we deal with that. Maybe the passing of the song of Bink Sake through the generations is what's going to keep people from sinking beneath the waves. Yeah. You know, like that could be symbolic.
Or kind of like you were saying, how like spirits float. What if Bink Sake doesn't like come back until the world floods in some way? Like I don't know how. Like,
yeah,
I don't know how that would even work, but
yeah, it's pretty. It's that detail I never really thought about, and when I saw that, I was like, okay, if there is something to this, that could hold a lot of implications, because there's a lot of references to sake and liquor in the story, and it's like, you know, did Oda have this planned on more than one level, where it wasn't just the surface level of like, oh, pirates like to drink, that's why. Right. It could be more than that. It could be like, well, alcohol has certain properties with water, and the world is mostly water in my world, and
well, and I gotta say, this does make me think of a theory I came up with a long time ago, and I never did a video on it, but whenever we were in Egghead and Lilith was talking about like the whole, like it's like the island runs on fire. If we had more resources, we could build an eternal sun or whatever. And now that we've seen the Mother Flame, I probably should be talking about this more, but you know, like alcohol can burn, right?
Yeah.
Like and it'll burn until all the alcohol's gone from the liquid, right? Well, looking at the Mother Flame, that's fire like in some kind of liquid, is it possible that like Bink Sake is like some source of eternal power because it has like unlimited alcohol? Like, for example, not like, I don't know how this would really work, but what if like the alcohol is fermenting so fast that it's fermenting faster than the fire burns, so it gives it technically infinite fire? Not that that would actually work like in the real world, but maybe that's like their argument. And so basically, like, what if Bink Sake is like the power source, or Bink Sake is what's powering the sun, or something, some weird, you know, amalgamation there? Because you know, maybe, or even conversely, like you were talking, how alcohol or spirits float, and with all these with all the wolves, it's like, what if whenever the world floods, I don't know, can they like burn it? So like not only is everyone drowning, it's like, well, if you get out of the water, then you're on fire. So, you know, like, I don't know.
Yeah, you know, it's first off, even if it's not the most realistic thing, like how it's not how it would work in our world. I mean, I'll just give it to One Piece. Like, there's a lot of things in One Piece that don't work how they should. You know, like light shouldn't be able to take like a solid form like Kizaru is able to do, you know. Also, realistically, Kizaru moving at the speed of light should be unmatchable by any character in the story, but plenty of characters have matched Kizaru. I think people underestimate how fast light speed is. I see people throw this around where, like, you know, like anime characters at power scaling, they're like, oh, this character's faster than light. And I'm like, do you know how fast light is? It's literally the fastest thing in the physical universe, I guess, apart from Higgs bosons. It's
our galactic speed limit.
It is the speed limit of everything.
Of physics, basically. Pretty much.
Yeah, of
in our universe, at
the
least.
Hard cap on how fast. Yeah. Besides subatomic particles, and very specific subatomic particles, it is the fucking speed. Sorry, am I allowed to just curse sometimes?
Occasionally, yeah. No, don't worry about it. This is the second channel. We can go off the rails here.
It's the speed limit. You know, like we're talking. All the light in the universe that reaches us is coming to us with a delay because it can't move faster than light speed. You know, like there's characters moving faster than light's insane to me. No one realistically, Kizaru should be the fastest and possibly most dangerous character in the story, moving that fast. This should be like unstoppable, but he is unstoppable.
light only goes that fast because it has no resting mass. Like until you know what I mean. Like it literally doesn't weigh anything or has no mass until it starts moving. Because then it had again, I'm not a physicist, but to my understanding, like once it starts moving, then the momentum of it or the whatever the physics terms are, then it gains mass while it's moving. But like with Kizaru, like my only thinking is like maybe it takes a second for him to get going, and that's how he's not light speed.
Yeah.
You know, like it takes a moment for him to turn the light and move or whatever. Like, but you're right. Like when Sanji deflected Kizaru, I'm like, all right, Kizaru's reaction was legit because he's like, dude, I'm freaking light. Like he's mad at Oda. He's like, Oda, I'm literally I don't weigh anything. Like how like Sanji, he's like a cyborg. It's like this shouldn't even work.
Yeah. It's the same thing with Enel. Like it's like these guys should be untouchable because of how fast they can conceivably move. So it's like, to me, just to bring it back to what we were saying, I don't think One Piece needs to be totally realistic in how certain physics and science works in the story, because it's been well established at this point that we're not talking real science at all. Anyone moving at light speed is the strongest character in the story realistically, but that's not the case from what we're reading. So we got to give some suspension of disbelief when we're looking at theories and
Yeah, especially now that we're deep into the science part of the story, right? With Egghead, and like Oda's trying to make things make sense, with like some kind of science reasoning, and like Oda's skipping the steps. He's just doing what he feels like. Like one thing that people have been bringing up a lot, and we're going to talk about this more a little bit later, but I just want to mention it now, is on Weatheria. If you remember the cover story, you probably heard about this, where there's like fire inside the bubble and or the balloon, and people are like, oh, that's a mother flame connection, which like maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later, but just in regards to what we're saying, I'm like, it should not be possible to have a fire inside a balloon. A tide balloon, because once you take away the oxygen, it's going to burn the oxygen, like whatever's left in that space, and then the fire is going to go out, right?
Yeah.
Or it'll pop the balloon, which is probably more realistic, right? Like it'll melt it. And so whenever I saw that, I'm like, okay, he's definitely going for a hot air balloon concept there, right? Like he has a fire inside a balloon to make it float, because whatever. But that shouldn't be possible, right? Like, also another thing is like if you were to ever put Sabo in like a closed space and he's like fire, like he would die if he, like, theoretically, like if put him in a vat, like if he went to space, he should just die. Like, I mean, everyone should, but
fire, especially if you're made of fire, especially that's like a Charmander, the rain on Charmander's tail, going out. It's like that kind of thing.
It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, peak episode. That's like maybe the best Pokemon episode potentially.
Oh yeah.
Like one of the best. But all right. So something I want to get back to a little bit is Saturn's death. I know we talked about that a little bit, but I want to hone in on it just a little bit more because, you talked about maybe this is proof or at least a hint that their forms are from Imu, like a result of Imu's powers, or Imu gave them the powers or whatnot. And I think at this point that's looking pretty strong. As for the origins of it all, I have a few different ideas. But the thing I want to talk about that I mentioned a little bit is how Blackbeard might tie into this, because and also how Moria might actually tie into this, because as for Blackbeard, we know Blackbeard's like the one guy who can cancel your devil fruit powers like on a whim, right? If you touch him with Black Vortex, your powers are gone. And that made me think of a situation where, like, let's say someone got the immortality surgery, right? And then let's say Blackbeard went up and used the Black Vortex on them. Would they die because would the devil fruit powers from before that were used on them get canceled? Like, would all the devil fruit effects on them stop? And I genuinely don't have a good answer for that. I don't think we've really seen the only time we've seen him use it is on devil fruit users and their powers cancel. So we haven't seen him use it on somebody who's been affected by a devil fruit. But the reason I bring that up is, like, could that be kind of what's happening here? Did Imu maybe use the equivalent of like a Black Vortex, something that can cancel somebody's powers, and that's why he's vanishing, like the immortality surgery or whatever went away? And so maybe it's not that Imu gave them the forms, but he can just kill them because he's like, I can take away your immortality because I can cancel powers. And then the other thing that I want to mention is Moria, because I think Moria's had a lot of maybe somewhat ties into the Gorosei and Imu in general, because obviously the shadows, that builds just a aesthetic similarity because all this stuff is like black lightning or black whatever. This, also with Blackbeard and the Void stuff, like it's all this black stuff going on, right? But with Moria, it like whenever Saturn started like withering away and like his body literally like disintegrated and just left the skeleton behind, it reminded me a lot of Thriller Bark, because remember, the people who had their shadows taken, if they went out into the sun, they disintegrated. Now, I think their skeletons would have probably also gotten vaporized from what we know. I don't think we ever saw somebody. We saw people get disintegrated.
We saw them
like,
halfway.
Down.
We saw them halfway. Like they were losing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But regardless, it just reminds me of it because he lost everything but the skeleton. And then you go look at Brook, who obviously is tied to Thriller Bark and also had his shadow taken and all that. His body withered away, but a skeleton was left behind, right? And so I think Oda is flirting with the Blackbeard Void stuff, the shadow stuff, because they also wanted to kill Moria after Marineford. Like maybe his fruit's important. So I don't know. I just want to get your thoughts on that. Kind of what is going on with Saturn?
Yeah, so I don't think Blackbeard can cancel I don't think Blackbeard could cancel the immortality surgery if he grabs someone. The reason I think so is because we have proof from a fairly recent chapter that Blackbeard can't cancel the effects of a devil fruit done to somebody else. The reason I say this is because of Boa. Boa used her devil fruit to turn Blackbeard's crewmates to stone, and Blackbeard needed her to undo that. He couldn't just grab them himself and undo it with his devil fruit. So if the immortality surgery is the effect of someone's devil fruit, he can cancel the user's powers, but he can't cancel what the user has done with those powers.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a good rebuttal. I would say maybe being turned to stone is like maybe like that might be a different ball game, like because Boa said that she couldn't cancel it too, and so I'm wondering if like maybe her powers are more permanent, or like she couldn't cancel it if somebody else did it, right? Like she can only do it if she turned him to stone.
Well, yeah,
but regardless, I think it's a good point. I'm just saying that maybe being turned to stone's a little bit different, but regardless, I think it's a good point for sure.
Yeah, I mean, she can't turn someone back that someone else has turned into stone with her power. But if it's her power that she did it to somebody, she can turn him back. Blackbeard can't.
Right.
So, at least in Blackbeard's case specifically, I don't think his devil fruit can cancel out the effects of devil fruits. He can only cancel out the user themselves. So I don't think what Imu's like. I don't think Imu has Blackbeard's power. I think it's something else completely. The way I see it is this is a deal with the devil that the Gorosei have made. And the Gorosei made a deal with Imu, and it might be a conditional deal that Imu can revoke this power and immortality whenever he wants. I'm assuming it's a he, because isn't the voice in the anime? It's the same voice actor for Aokiji, I think it is.
Yeah,
I heard it was.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. I remember hearing it was Dio's voice actor from JoJo. So
I'm pretty sure it is a he, just because when the Gorosei refer to Imu, there's a male celestial dragon kanji included. Which, you know more about this than I do, but I've seen that from, I don't know.
I've heard that too.
The Twitter One Piece info guys. Artur, Pew Piece, Sandman, whoever it was, one of those guys.
Yeah. So, I think Imu reserves the ability to just remove those powers at any time, and I think why Saturn turned into a skeleton, it's because his age caught up with him all at once. He was probably frozen at that age whenever he took the deal, and then he lived for hundreds of years, and then Imu removed the power that Saturn had, and now all those years that he had spent, all of a sudden, all at once, caught up to him and turned him into a skeleton.
And so, I guess my question there would then be like you said, they kind of made a deal with the devil for Imu, and to me, like Imu is definitely symbolically the devil for sure, like the sea devil, because like for me, you think about gods in One Piece, Luffy's the sun god, but he's not actually the sun god, like in the sense of, he doesn't have sun powers, he's not an actual god, he's just a rubber dude who liberates people, and sun god's a symbolic thing. And so for me, I feel like Imu being the devil or being tied to the underworld is going to be similar, where like Imu's not going to be, I don't think, going to be the devil, because I don't think there is one. Like the devil is going to be like the most evil person in the world or whatever, because that's just fitting in with how gods and demons and all that are in One Piece. I just think So whatever Imu's powers are, I think, Imu could be from the underworld, but as far as like how these powers are manifesting, that's what I have a really hard time with. Like, people say like maybe Imu just has the devil fruit, and like, I mean, maybe Oda could cook with that, but to me, I'm like, with the way Oda works, he's gonna find something to ground it in reality more. Make it symbolically a devil, but it's gonna be something else. And and Underworld makes a lot of sense because, I mean, just with immortality and all this, black stuff going around, it just feels evil, right? I think they even said that, like, whenever the Gorosei first came in, someone's like, what's this evil aura or whatever? But even when Saturn's dying, you can see a circle under him. Like, there's another... It's not... it doesn't... it's too hard to tell. It's a little obscure, but you can tell there's, like, another circle underneath him.
Let me see.
And I don't know if... I just don't know what that means. I don't know if this is tying to his summoning stuff, or if...
Oh, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, isn't that weird? It's like it's doing the reverse.
It's like there's like a ring around him of like the aura, the black aura that's like drained from him. It's like in a ring.
Yeah, it's like a reverse of the summoning circle, right? Like,
yeah,
like Imu is. It's so I'm almost wondering, like, is he being? Is it? Are we thinking of it the wrong way? And is he maybe being like re-summoned to the underworld where he once was? Right? Like he's just being like his body disintegrated because he's just dead again. But Imu could theoretically bring him back if he wanted. Like, I don't know. It's a weird situation. And one other thing, which I can't. Oh, here it is. If you go, and I can send it to you in the chat if that helps. But on one of the pages, it's the one where like it's the last one of the Saturn scene. In the middle, it looks like there's smiley faces in the black stuff. I just sent it to you if you want to look. It's in the middle, like where it says AG, like AAGH. There's a smiley face in the black stuff above and below. And that just, and that might just be Oda having fun or whatever, but that, I don't know. I just don't know what to think of it. It's all just so weird to me.
If I could, before I forget, because I do have a couple things about the devil stuff.
Yeah, go for it. I'll go for whatever you got to cook. Go for it.
So, I'm going to ask you some questions to gauge where you're at on this. So, Kuma was praying to a cross, like the church. He carries a Bible. The church he would pray to some god, some kind of god. I'm assuming that was Nika, right? Like he was praying. Is that most likely the church that he ran, and that cross symbol and all that, and the Bible that he carries around are related to the sun god Nika in some capacity. Now we have Nika, who was this god of liberation, about freedom, and he's this god who died and now is coming back, is being resurrected. Now there's the famous line in the Bible, know the truth and it will set you free, right? So if there's a parallel being made with Nika to Jesus from the Bible and the biblical God, you can see also references, with the seraphim being named, the name of the the experiments, Lunarian stuff, the general aesthetic of what the Lunarians looked like. Then there's the naming of the golem, Emeth, from Egghead, right? Emeth, I looked this up, is a character from Narnia, the Chronicles of Narnia. That's the name of a golem in Narnia. And the Chronicles of Narnia were written by C.S. Lewis, which I don't know if you know much about C.S. Lewis, but he was like a big Christian apologist. He would write a bunch of books about Christianity, why he believed in it, all that stuff.
Yep.
So I don't know if Emeth has any direct connections to the Bible itself, but I do know that Emeth is a name that's featured in Jewish mythology, which Judaism is Abrahamic. It's an Abrahamic religion, which Christianity built off of. So Oda's been kind of going crazy with the name dropping of biblical names and biblical references at this point in the story. He's made references to all these other, ancient religions and mythologies around the world, and then you have a lot of biblical references being put in the tail end of the story. Like, as we're getting into the final saga, we're starting to see more and more of these crop up. The God Knights. I
mean, everyone has saint in their name.
Yeah, the saints being the names of the celestial dragons. The concept of devil fruits in general, like the main power source in the One Piece world, is named after like the story of Adam and Eve. You have Lilith, the Vegapunk, which is Lilith is also a character from the story of Adam and Eve. Someone tagged me in Twitter on a video where people were talking about how the story of Egghead is, in a way, kind of an allegory for the story of Adam and Eve, because Vegapunk split himself into equal parts male and female. There were 3 female Vegapunks and 3 male Vegapunks. And it was one of the female Vegapunks that, out of her greed and desire for pleasure, betrayed the others in because of this like ancient or this knowledge that you're not supposed to know, because that's what Eve did. She took a fruit from the tree of knowledge.
The forbidden fruit.
The forbidden fruit.
And also, and real quick, just to back it up just a little bit more, whenever she ate the fruit, that gave them knowledge of good and evil, like kind of conscious on like what's good and bad, right? And Lilith is like the evil Vegapunk or whatever. So and then because you have York as greed or whatever, but Lilith is the last one left, and I think that's also like important. Like she's, I don't know, it fits to me that the woman, that's, I mean, technically they're all alive, but she was the main one. But anyways.
And Lilith was the one that made it out, and in the story, Lilith was banished from paradise also. So it's like, the way I see it is like, okay, you have the Adam and Eve trees, you have the Lilith stuff, you have the potential, you have the devil fruit stuff, you have the God Knights, you have Emeth, you have all, these are all like references to Christian theology, and I could see the magic circles with the Gorosei being summoned, that the magic circles and the pentagram and all that stuff is associated with the devil. I can see a situation where, let's say Imu had a magic circle. Well, there's 5 Gorosei. Imu would be the magic circle with the 6s on it. If they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they have them all arranged in the circle. Let's say Imu summons himself somewhere. What's that circle look like? It might be the magic circle with the star in it, and then the 6s going around. So I could see a world where Oda is crafting biblical parallels and making Imu to be, in a sense, a literal devil figure. And then it begs the question, with Brooks' time skip, when they were trying to summon Satan, they literally like name dropping it, like name dropping Satan, overt reference to the devil in One Piece. There is, the name devil fruit. They have a word for this. It's devil. The concept of a devil exists in their world. And if you have a god of freedom and liberation and all these good things, it kind of necessitates that those good things exist in comparison to something opposite. Because you can't really, if everything's good, then there's not really a definition for the word good. If there's a god of liberation, there has to be an equal but opposite force that serves to oppress and that serves to, do the opposite of good things, right? Because there has to be a comparison point for Nika to be such a significant good being. That there has to be something almost equally as evil and oppressive as Nika is good and liberating. So the way I see it is there's a good chance that there is a god in the One Piece world that is a god of evil, that is a devil figure. And it may not be that Imu was the original devil. It could be that just like Nika had a Joy Boy that would return, Luffy is not the original Nika, but he bears the powers of Nika. He's like a resurrected Nika in a way. It could be that Imu is not the originator of this power, but the inheritor of this power. And the devil fruits maybe predate Imu. And Imu might have done something that got, because Nerona Imu was one of the original 20 rulers that went to Marijois. So we can presume that Nerona Imu at one point was just a king of some country, a human.
A regular human, yep.
Right. Who did something that now gave Imu these devil-like powers. So I think Imu, if anything, inherited the powers of real devil, of the real devil, and inherited those powers and is now using them to control the world. And that's why...
The problem for me is I agree with everything. It's just I think the disconnect is like, you know, using Nika and Luffy as an example. He's not really a god, right? He's a god in name only. Like because they believe him to be one, right? Like he's just a rubber dude, right? But like he's called a god, just like Gonfall and Skypiea. He's given the title of god because he's called that. And you think about devils, we've heard a lot of people be called devils in the story, and a lot of time it's just a moniker because they don't like them. Like, you know, think about Robin the demon child, right? It's like they just don't like these people, so they cast them off as bad people. And I think Oda's kind of done this the whole story where, you know, he builds up the gods and devil stuff, but it's all just in name only. It's what you believe, right? And so whenever we talk about Imu maybe having the powers of like the devil, I'm totally down for like being a devil in that regard. Could just be that you're from the underworld, like you did die and come back. Like you could say Brook is maybe a devil in some way because he's been to the literal underworld and come back, right? Like whenever they say he's Satan, like that's kind of the irony, is like, well, like I mean, I look like the Grim Reaper. I have been there, you know, like I'm pretty close to being Satan at this point, but obviously he's not. And so whenever it comes to Imu being the devil, like I don't think there's gonna be one devil in the underworld that's like, you know, like the de facto has been the devil for a long time, right? I think that there's just an underworld and people die there, and there's probably a lot of probably like Impel Down, you know, you're probably gonna have a variety of people who die, like good people who are just, you know, they're in the underworld because they died and that's where you go. And then there's probably really evil people who go to the underworld as well, because it is a place, you know, like I said, Brook's been there. And so the way that I see it is like, it's probably not that there's like a devil in terms of like the overarching leader of the underworld who can call all the shots and all that. I think it's more like there was an entity in the underworld who was maybe like the king of hell, so to speak.
What do you call that?
But I'm just but he would be a person that had died in the past and was just like the most evil person in the world or whatever, and his will wanted to come back and take over or whatever. So there's like this really evil, you know, will or soul or whatever in the underworld who wants to come back. And so he wouldn't be the devil because that person would have just been a person at some point and died and then wanted to come back. And
we're making a leap there, Dak. We're making a leap in assuming that all this magical stuff necessarily originated from regular people, which we don't know, because we know there's spirits, we know there's an afterlife in the story. So supernatural things are already confirmed to exist in One Piece. Devil fruits by their nature are not explainable even by Vegapunk science. The Imu magic.
I don't know. Well, Vegapunk remade one, right?
He remade one, but not perfectly. And they also
close.
He didn't figure out Logias. He has part of the equation, but he doesn't have the full equation. And this is a guy who's done stuff in science that is hundreds of years ahead of its time, and he still hasn't figured out. If the entire island of Egghead was able to match the technology of the Void Century, but not match the creation of the Devil Fruits, that means that the Devil Fruits might even predate that technology and that the advancement of the Ancient Kingdom to that point. Which could it just suggests to me that the Devil Fruits are in a league of their own in terms of mystery and origin, and it just sounds to me like I'm sorry, I know I interrupted you. I have to get this out. One Piece is a world with the supernatural heavily a part of it, so it's a leap to say that all of these god things and the origins of all these magical elements are entirely man-made. I don't think that's the case. I think there is a supernatural element at play here, and we're seeing that with the Gorosei and Imu and these powers that prior to these chapters have not been explained at all by the mechanics we know of Devil Fruits and Haki and all that stuff. This is separate, completely separate.
So the thing for me, I guess, to kind of like just sort of try to bottle it up into like a small thing is like, until we see an actual god, I'm not gonna think there's an actual devil, because like I don't look at Luffy being Sun God Nika and say like he's actually a god, right? He's a rubber dude who has a devil fruit that's really powerful, and he liberates people, and probably, and you know, we're taking a little bit of a leap here, but to me, I think it's pretty likely that the story of Sun God Nika was someone in the past who probably had the same power and probably was able to use the same transformation and saved a bunch of people and got regarded as Sun God Nika. Not that they are an actual god, right? That like is ruling over everybody or has actual supernatural powers. They just ate this devil fruit, which maybe they are supernatural in some way, but like that person becoming a god, they aren't actually a god, right? Like they're just believed to be that.
What makes someone a god?
Somebody calls him that. They're given the title.
Okay, so everyone calls Nika a sun god.
Right, but he's not a true. But that's what I'm saying is that's not an actual god. Like if you're gonna have multiple gods, then I don't think that's real. Like Gonfall being a god, he's not actually a god, right?
Right, but that's different because Gonfall that's a title. Enel is just a guy who ate a devil fruit and called himself a god.
That's the whole lesson. That's what I'm saying. Everyone is people are called that, so that's why they're believed to be that.
So my question is, what makes an actual god in your definition?
Only
what would Nika have to be to qualify him as an actual god in the story?
He'd have to be some almighty, ethereal, omnipotent, omnipresent being. You know what I mean? Like that would be my cutoff if you're actually a god. Like, and then if you're the devil, then you would have to be around at the start of the universe and tasked with controlling the underworld. Like you'd have to have like a Satan origin story, just like in Christianity, where like maybe there was a god at the very start of the universe who ruled everything, and then he had like a top angel who ended up turning against him. Like that might fit the barometer, because like then you're almost tapping into like, I mean, I'm not like a big Naruto guy, but the what are their names? The two guys who were the first, like the original Naruto and Sasuke or whatever, and they were like the like originators of chakra or whatever, right? Giving like or something like that, right? It's like maybe something like that could work, but I just don't think. I think if you're gonna be a god in One Piece, you would have to like the god or the devil. You would have to be part of the origin story of like the universe. Otherwise you're just a strong person being called a god. Like just like in Dressrosa, how they still call Luffy Lucy or Lucy. Like they even have the statue of Lucy, even though they know it's Luffy. They're still going on like, okay, we're just gonna pretend it's this other guy. That's how I envision all the gods in One Piece they're normal people that are just being regarded as gods because of great things they did.
So let me fire back at you with some points that I think might help illuminate where I'm coming from, because the way I see it, Nika doesn't have to be an omnipotent, omnipresent god. If the One Piece world is not the real world, if there are allusions to Christianity, I'm not saying that Nika is the Christian god in One Piece form. I think that there's just similarities that Oda's constructing, parallels. I don't think the gods of Elbaf are one-to-one the gods of Norse mythology. I think there are some differences. And even if we were to say that Nika is supposed to be a one-to-one parallel with Jesus, well, Jesus, while he was a human, while he was on Earth with us humans, was not omnipresent. He was in one body at one place at any given time.
Well, you have the Holy Trinity situation, though.
Yeah, but Jesus specifically. And if we're saying that Nika is, like, in that sense, like a god who was among the people who died and resurrected, Nika can't be in all places at once because he was in his body as Nika at that time. And there's also the assumption that we're making here that Joy Boy and Nika are one and the same, which I used to make. I'll give you that. I used to say that they were one and the same. But it's possible that Joy Boy was just an inheritor of Nika's power, and Nika could predate Joy Boy, and that means that it's very possible Nika is at the origin of the universe. Because what is Nika? Nika's a sun god. Where do we owe the origins of our solar system? To the sun. The planets were formed in the aftermath of the dust and debris when the sun, was just starting, when the supernovas and all that stuff happened. All the dust and debris formed the planets in the universe. All the planets come from stars. That's basically, the long and short of it. So if he's the sun god, the sun is essentially the focal point of our solar system, and stars are the main source of life and energy in our universe, essentially. So I could very well see that the sun god is part of the origin story for the One Piece universe. And I could very well see that Nika, at the very least, when there are people that inherited Nika's power, like Joy Boy, now currently like Luffy, at that time, Nika can't be omnipresent or omnipowerful. He's limited to what the mortal vessel that he's in the same way that Jesus was not omnipowerful. He was able to die, right? You know, when he was in a human body on Earth, he was able to die. So that's the way I see it, is like there's a separation. That's why the Holy Trinity is even a thing, because there's a separation between these forms of God. And I think in the same way, if Oda's crafting a parallel there, if the original Nika and the original devil are behind the origin story of this world, we're only seeing now their powers being enacted through mortal beings like Imu, like Joy Boy, so on and so forth, right? That's how I think that's working. It's not like and that's why I think that Imu is not the original devil. I think Imu is just an inheritor of this ability, the same way Luffy inherited this ability and potentially Joy Boy inherited this ability. It's like they're a vessel for some higher being.
So for me, it's I think the main thing is that going back to like the origins of Sun God Nika, like I would have a much easier time believing, tying to like my example with Dressrosa and Lucy, I would have a much easier time believing that someone way in the past, was like, they probably, maybe whenever the ancient kingdom was starting, maybe when like devil fruits were first made, was able to use that form that we saw, because I think we've already seen that form in several other places, like Sulong form and also Hody Jones eating the energy steroids. And so I'm wondering if like maybe you don't even need the fruit to use that form, or who knows, like maybe a special race of people could do it or something. And the reason I just bring that up is like, I think that the legend of Sun God Nika, I have an easier time believing that someone way in the past was able to use that form, and they had the flowing white hair or whatever, and they saved a bunch of people. And then, back then it was probably like primitive time in the world, and so people didn't have great ways of sharing information. They just saw stuff happen and just started spreading legends, right? And so I would have an easier time believing someone with that white hair saved a bunch of people. They were like, "What's your name?" And the person just said Nika, and they're like, "Oh, it's that's Sun God Nika." And so then in the future, when other people were able to use that form because of the fruit, which we call the Nika fruit now, but maybe it still is just a regular rubber fruit or whatever. Now that whenever people see that form, they immediately think, "Oh, that's the Sun God. He's back." But it all just started from a legend of just a regular dude saving the day. Because an example I've always used is, Luffy loves using nicknames that are very close to his original name, right? Sure. Like Luffy Taro, Lushi. Like, he's not good at picking names like that. And so my thought is that Nika is 2-ka, right? Like Ni is 2, so it's like, the name implies 2. And so my head has always been like, or in my head I've always been like, well, what if the original person was 1-ka, like Ichika, which would be a girl's name, right? I think. But regardless, that would be like 1-ka instead of 2, because we remember the mermaid quintuplets, or like they had like like Amnika, Yonka,
Sanji, Yonji, like Ichiji.
Yeah, so we've seen that before, and so in my head, I'm like, I bet you the original person that was regarded as Nika was like Luffy, saved a bunch of people, and they were like, "What's your name?" And he had to like give a nickname because he didn't want all the camaraderie, he didn't want to be viewed as a hero, all that kind of stuff, or just to hide his identity. And so he's like, "I'm Nika," like very close to his original name, but just And so then a legend started there, like, "Oh, the Sun God Nika saved us. Sun God Nika's gonna come back." Blah blah blah. But it could just be that some dude saved people back in the day in primitive times, and that's just the legends that were shared. And that actually goes into my theory, which we probably don't have enough time for this because we could spend hours on this. But, that's why I still don't think the fruit is a zone fruit. The only thing that makes it seem like a zone is that there's a transformation, which, as I said, we've mimicked in other places with Sulong form and energy steroids. And we also know that whenever Luffy goes into that form, his heart's beating like crazy, and he has steam coming out of his body if you go watch the anime. And so to me, I'm like, is that just a hyped up Gear 2? But we see the transformation because like it's, he's all white. Is that just steam everywhere? And that's just how we're viewing it. And so people think he's in the Nika form because that's, it's been used in multiple places. And so yeah, to end it all, I just don't think, like I said, whenever we get a confirmation that there is an actual God in terms of not being called that, but they have God actual powers, then I'd be more open to an actual devil. But until that happens, I think it's more like there's just a really evil guy who was in the underworld and just really wanted to escape, and somehow he did and took over Imu, and that's where we're at. Not that he's the devil, he's just the most evil guy in the underworld, some dude who died in the past.
Could I give one more? I know I'm probably not going to convince you at this point, but let me say this at least for the viewers.
Oh,
there's
absolutely.
There's one thing about Nika that I think separates him from all other devil fruit powers, and I think separates him from Imu, and I think supports the god and devil parallels happening here. Nika demonstrates a very unique ability to create whatever he can imagine. We've seen Luffy create things out of thin air, like the goggles.
Is it thin air, though? That's my pushback.
Well, my point is that Nika's power is a power very strictly bound to imagination. And if we're comparing him to God, right? God is the creator of everything. Everything in the universe is basically a result of God's imagination in that respect. Mm-hmm. So if Nika is that parallel, well, Nika's power is to create things to a degree. Now the devil, on the other hand, while being very powerful on his own, the distinction between the devil and God, and this is even in the Bible, is that the devil cannot create. The devil can only warp God's creation and ruin God's creation. So what is Imu able to do with his powers? We see Imu is able to grant incredible abilities to the Gorosei, but in doing so, warps them into these horrible monstrosities. Imu is not, as far as we can tell, because these are all, like, these monsters come from existing mythology. We can point to Imu's demons and say, look, this is the Gyuki, this is blah, blah, blah. I think Imu's ability, whatever it is not capable of creation or imagination. It's not based on that. It's based on warping reality in a malicious way. And that's where I think there's a parallel there, because it's like everyone that Imu helps is being transformed into these disgusting, monstrous things, and then Joy Boy is able to, or Nika and Nika's powers are capable of creation, imagining things, creating them out of presumably thin air, being able to help, for example, Bonnie realize a different future and use her mind to create a future in which he's free, and so on. Like I definitely think there is a parallel here, and I think that if we're going to say that they're not gods, then I have to ask, where did these magical elements, where did the devil fruits come from in the first place? They had to come from somewhere. Where did all these god transformations and these mythical Zoans come from? Where did all these fantastical things originate from? Because they have to originate from somewhere. So there's a supernatural element there, and I think there is some sort of supernatural being responsible for the creation of devil fruits and all these magical things. I just that's where I'm at this point.
Well, it's funny that you said that, because I almost view the creation and warping stuff opposite, because well, I guess for one thing, I just want to shout out, I know Kev DOG has been talking about this a lot, and I think Bean Boy in my chat has been bringing it up a lot, and I've just heard other people bring it up, where, like, Imu might have, like, an ink fruit parallel, where Imu can, where Luffy's the eraser, because he's made of rubber, and then Imu's the, like it's a little close to Conjuro's fruit, so I don't really like it, but Imu might be like ink, and you even look, if we make the assumption that Imu is giving the Gorosei these forms, that might even add credence to it, because it's like Imu's creating these crazy zone things for them to use, right? And so that might be a creation element. And to talk about you talk about Luffy creating stuff, making stuff out of thin air, like, that's probably the ongoing thought that people have so far. But to me, if you think about the glasses that he pulled out of his hair, basically in Egghead, going back to what I said about how steam was coming off his body whenever he went into Gear 5th, I feel like he may have just turned the steam to rubber and was able to shape it into whatever shape he wanted, and that's how he made it, right?
What about the paint bucket?
Yeah,
the bat and the paint, but he generated a paint bucket and then painted the bat.
If he had, if that idea of being able to turn the steam into, rubberize it into whatever, that I feel like then he would be able to make whatever, but it's not just a random supernatural thing. He's just able to, because we already know that his powers let him turn other things into rubber, right? And by virtue of being rubber, he can shape it into whatever shape. And so in that regard, he's almost able to make anything. Now, the argument would be like, well, if you grab steam and turn it into rubber, it shouldn't equal paint. But that might be the little jump in logic that Oda wants us to make, is like, okay, here's how I'm grounding it. He's turning steam that he has around him into rubber to make whatever he wants. You know, that might be just the rhyme or reason Oda's going to give us. Not that, you know, that's necessarily 100% true, but that's how I'm viewing it right now. And then what else? What was the other thing you said after that part?
Well, that Joyful or Nika's capable of creation. Imu can only warp the things, and
well, I guess another thing is Luffy warps all the time because he can turn stuff to rubber and reshape it. So that was another thing I was gonna say, is like, you know, Oda's kind of flipping it on its head a little bit. Like, not saying you're completely wrong, because obviously with Saturn getting erased like this and Imu just erasing islands in general, right? It's there's already like a, you know, a little bit of context there, like,
yeah, but that. Right? Isn't that supporting it? The fact that Imu can only destroy things and warp things. We haven't seen Imu create something out of nothing. We've seen Luffy do that.
I mean, sort of. Like,
you could say the steam, but he created goggles basically out of thin air.
But I'm saying, as far as Imu, if we make the assumption that he gave the Gorosei these forms, and that's something he created, we also saw Imu turn into his own form and like have like the tail extend out, and so that just makes me wonder. Like, I don't think we know enough to say that yet.
Well, where did a sandworm come? We've never seen Jupiter. Like, did the sandworm? Like, Jupiter's not in the desert, so why is he a sandworm? You know, like these could just be very powerful creatures that, you know, existed at one point. You know, like there's no reason to believe that these demon transformations didn't already exist before, and Imu's just giving them these monstrous powers, right?
Yeah. So. Well, and let's actually dive into that, because the way that I personally think this Imu situation happened is that Imu, like we said, was one of the original 20 kings, was just a human being, you know, whatever, originally. But then I think upon building this coalition of other kings or whatever to fight against the ancient kingdom, I think whenever he met the... How should I phrase this? You know how Doflamingo was really young and then met the other people that became his officers or whatever? And then we also have that panel that's very similar between him and Imu, where like the Gorosei are bowing down to Imu and Treble and the gang are bowing down to Doflamingo. I think a very similar thing happened where like Nerona Imu was, you know, I don't know how old Imu would have been. I don't know if Imu would have been a king yet, but Imu obviously would have had these ambitions to take over the world. And I think Imu found the Gorosei in the midst of trying to figure out how to do these ambitions, similar to Orochi finding Higurashi and Semimaru, and there's other examples. Everyone has a like a teacher or whatever, right? In One Piece, I feel like. So I think Nerona Imu, the king, found the Gorosei, who already knew how to do some of this black magic kind of stuff, whatever the summoning circle stuff is. And I think the Gorosei were like, hey, if you really want to become, you know, the king of the world and whatever, there's a power we can give you, but, you know, you're going to get taken over by someone. And so they already probably knew how to, like, use these circles to tap into the underworld or whatever, and they were probably like, hey, Imu, there's this really evil being down there that we want to bring up, and you're going to be able to rule the world. It's just you have to, you know, you're going to be controlled. And so now my pushback, like my only maybe caveat here is I don't think that person would be the actual devil. I think it would just be like the most evil person down there. You know how Blackbeard went down to level 6, which Impel Down is already a hell parallel with Dante's Inferno, right? Well, Blackbeard went all the way down to level 6, told all the people down there, hey, you all fight, whoever wins gets to join my crew. And I think it was a similar situation where like the Gorosei maybe were the five of the strongest people maybe from like the quote-unquote level 6 of hell. And so that's how like they were able to come up, like maybe like the Gorosei were humans who were tapping into some taboo stuff and they got taken over, and that's how like this all started. But then I'm thinking there's probably like one, maybe like the Magellan or something of the real hell. That's what Imu was, something like that. And honestly, Magellan had the Hydra things, which kind of looked like Emu's little dragon form that we only got a couple glimpses of. And so all that's just to say, like, that's my origin story, but I just don't think there is a 100% devil. It's just the most evil guy down there.
What about Paradise Lost? Do you know about that? With the creation of the devil's kingdom? You know what his kingdom was called?
Nope.
It's called Pandemonium. The word pandemonium actually comes, I'm pretty sure, from there, or like some word to describe. It means all demons. Now,
Okay.
the One Piece castle, where all the celestial dragons answer to, and where Imu resides, is Pangaea Castle.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that Pangaea, that's not an accurate representation because the world isn't all one continent. It's not all lands. It's that's just the name they chose for it.
Right.
And in Paradise Lost, the devil and all his fallen angels get sent down to hell, and then they create their own kingdom. And it's supposed to be this beautiful, big castle made out of gold, and they call it Pandemonium, and that's where they have their council, where all the demons meet, and all of the devil and his peers meet, and they make decisions there, and it's like the Stygian Council or whatever it's called. So it could be like, obviously it would probably be a big red flag if the world government named their castle Pandemonium. It would probably be also a very big giveaway from Oda, what he's doing here. But just the idea of like pan something, like all something, this kingdom of these evil people who went to the land of what were previously considered gods, and they were like these angel-like people, and they took it over, and then they built their own castle on top of it, and it's this very big, gaudy, illustrious castle, and it's like, this is like, I don't know, I don't mean to harp on this. I know you want to move on to the different topics. I just find this so interesting because like, now that we're getting this far into the story and we're seeing like Imu actually do stuff, it's like, okay, let's try and take these pieces and like, what's actually happening here? Because it could be that there is some symbolism that Oda is not going to give away. He's not going to give away the whole goose right now.
Yeah.
But he's like, it's like drip feeding these little details. So like, I don't know, man. I know you disagree with me on. I'm just saying I'm pretty convinced at this point. Like I'm like 95% Oda's doing some devil parallel as well here, and Imu is like the vessel for that.
Well, like I said at the very beginning, like Imu is gonna be a devil in name, like in terms of the things that they've done, and like maybe even the powers that they have will make people call him that, or he will be a symbol for that. Like I don't think there's any doubt about that. My only pushback is like I just don't think there's like one main god and one main devil. Like that's mainly my main pushback. Like because like I said, if you were in the if you died and went to the underworld and then were brought back, you kind of are a devil already, like a devil, because you are, if you're an evil person that was in hell and then you came to the real world, that's like almost the objective definition of a devil at that point, right? Like so he will be in that regard. It's just like whenever I hear the devil, I'm like, okay, you're talking about like Satan, like the leader of hell that, like that honestly is a really weird situation when you think about it, just because like he was once with God, and then it's the whole argument of like and you also have the argument of like, well, like if God is good, why is there a hell in the first place? Like why aren't we making people, like why are people suffering? It's like, well, it's because you're evil and you're getting punished and all that, and so I'm gonna make Satan make sure you're getting punished. Like I don't think Imu is like that. I just think so I mentioned Magellan from Impel Down. I could also see Imu being like the Shiryu of Impel Down, where Imu was just going around just being the worst person ever, like the most hated evil person in hell, because they're just cutting people down, giving extra torture, whatever, and that's why Imu wanted to come back to like bring that hell to the real world. And so that would make it. And also talking about the Sea Devil, I think that is something that some people say like, oh, Imu's going to be the Sea Devil, and that maybe is tied to why devil fruits don't work in the water or whatever other number of factors. And I think Imu already is the Sea Devil in terms of being the evil person controlling the oceans. Like that's already in the way that Luffy is the sun god. Imu already is the Sea Devil. So yeah, like I said, my main pushback is I just don't think there's one god, one devil. That's mainly it.
All right. Yeah, I mean that's fair enough. I think we'll have to wait until Imu actually gives us a face reveal at the very least before we can make some determination on that.
Well, how do you feel? And we are, and everyone, whoever's listening, we are going to get back to the chapter in just a minute. But I think everyone wants to hear about this, honestly, and because this is one of the biggest things of the chapter is what the hell's going on with the Gorosei, right? The one thing that I wanted to mention was what do you think about Imu and Stelly being parallels? Because Stelly is, you know, a person who was kind of like a nobody, got adopted into nobility, ended up doing some really shady, dark stuff, marrying into the royal family, killing her parents, whatever, becoming king in the most, like, evil way possible. And then you think about Stelly going to the empty throne. Stelly's like, oh, I want to sit there. Like, and the guy's like, well, are you ready to take your oath? And he's like, not even paying attention, right? He does not care. And then also, whenever Vivi's poster was getting shown around, he had hard eyes, and his wife was like really mad. Like, why you got googly eyes for Vivi? What's going on? And I know everyone talks about the Imu loving Vivi thing, which I'm not fully on board on, but obviously they have a connection, obviously. But all that's to say, I think Imu may have been like Stelly, where Imu was maybe the ancient kingdom was super bountiful, everyone was rich and super happy and had all the food they wanted, but maybe for some reason Imu didn't get that, because maybe like it was a Kurozumi situation, or maybe Imu's family was really bad and Imu didn't get that kind of treatment, and so Imu was starving and all that and wanted revenge on the ancient kingdom because of that, and then probably took like the most evil route possible to become a king. And, you know, tying to what I said earlier about maybe Imu met the Gorosei, came up with this plan, got taken over by a devil thing. And so maybe that's how Imu got to power, is like, I'll do whatever it takes. Like, if I got to get controlled by the most evil person of all time, so be it. Like, I just want to, you know, rain hell down on these people. And then the reason I bring all that up is the Imu face reveal. I think what we're going to get is it's going to look somewhat like Stelly, but the person controlling, you know, the devil, like not the actual devil, but this underworld entity that is controlling Imu, I think it's going to look like Stelly, but be someone way stronger and more evil. And I think the logic behind doing that is like, hey, it's way easier to tell the Celestial Dragons that you're our leader when you look like one of the original 20 kings, right? Like, it's going to have, if you look like this evil entity, people are just going to be scared. But if we have you look like a normal guy, then we're good.
I could buy the idea that Stelly is like Oda kind of showing us the circumstances around how someone like Imu got into power, maybe. And unlike Stelly, there was no one to stop him from claiming that seat. So I could buy that. I think that's a very big possibility, especially considering who Stelly's, I guess, foster brother would be.
Sabo.
Sabo
pulled up on Imu.
Yeah, the head of the revolutionaries pulled up on Imu, is like, you know, big reason that Imu's identity is going to probably get revealed to the world. So I could see that parallel being made intentionally. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
that's ever since after we got a little bit of Imu, I went back and reread the thing where Stelly's like staring at the throne. I'm like, Oda is telling us something, you know. And then, like you said, Sabo got there, and Sabo's like, I didn't know hell would be at the top of the world. And, you know, he's seeing someone on the throne. So, like, Stelly goes there, it's empty, he wants to sit on it. Sabo goes there, someone is sitting on it. It's like, Oda's definitely painting a picture here, you know. And,
I forgot about that line. I didn't know hell would be at the top of the world.
Yeah.
There's a castle in that hell. I'm just saying.
Hey.
I'm just saying, pandemonium. I'm just saying,
man.
like, there's.
Well, to be clear, I definitely think the Gorosei and Imu all have underworld powers. You know, like, like, honestly, you look at Nashjuro with the ice sword stuff. That's confirmation to me, no question, that he's been to the underworld. Right? There's no other way you would do it, because that's how Brook does it.
Yeah, or his powers let him tap into the underworld. Maybe he hasn't been there, but he can cut through the fabric of reality to like bring the underworld out, you know?
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking, like, how would you tap into the chill of the underworld if you didn't go there and experience it, right? Because I think Brook said like his soul lets him use it or whatever. But regardless, yeah,
it have to do with the fact that it's a skeleton horse, right? Like, Brook's a skeleton. You know.
I need the Brook versus Nashjuro panel, man. I need it. Brook will never win. All right, I'm okay saying that, but I just need one clash. I just need
one. Yeah, like.
I just need
With the
ice
swords.
versus ice.
Yeah.
They both hit each other with ice. Like, oh, you can use that too, like Nustro, and then Brooks like, yeah, punk, like, you suck. you got cooked by cooked by Atlas and Oimo and Kashi. Get out of here.
Yeah. Just like turns into like a pile of bones.
So embarrassing for like Oimo and Kashi, man. Just I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
But all right, now I want to move into the Punk Records stuff, actually.
Okay.
So obviously we saw Punk Records, kind of Edison, my guy, my favorite satellite. He has been for a while. I've been saying that he's not dead, even though they tried saying like, oh, no one else is connected to Punk Records.
Okay.
I was like, Edison's not gone. I mean, a lot of people were saying that. You know, it wasn't just me, but that's my boy. All right, he's definitely my favorite one. He had a couple lines too where he's like whenever he was like sacrificed, there's like multiple lines he had that I loved when he was like, just get out of here. It's I don't know. It was there's one thing that was kind of like, it was something about, you know, believe in yourself. I can't remember what it was, but something that was kind of anti-science, like, hey, believe in the, you know, the craziness. But what I want to talk about here is, what do you think it is going on in terms of like, why are they going to Weatheria, and what is the future of Punk Records? Like they can still all connect to it. It's like a global connection. So York can still use it. They can all use it no matter where they're at, apparently. But just what's the use of it? Like, what is Oda plotting here? Is somebody else going to get a hold of it? Is it just going to stay up there forever?
Got a couple things that I've been thinking of, actually. I thought about that, and I'm glad you asked, because we saw something recently with Emeth that I think is a very important detail in this connection. Emeth used the rope to release the Conqueror's Haki. Where did we see that last?
Weatheria.
In Weatheria. So Weatheria definitely has some knowledge or insight into maybe Void Century magic or technology or whatever that may be. We talked earlier about the balloon with the fire. So there's probably a bunch of things in Weatheria that are not necessarily public knowledge or well known to the people of the world, and I could see that being one of the reasons they chose to go there. Another reason I could see them choosing to go there, they're on the Punk Records is on a cloud. It's on like the big island clouds. It can't just float around aimlessly in the sky. I mean, I guess it can, but it would make more sense for it to be attached to Weatheria, because Weatheria is a moving target. If the world government wanted to blast it with, I guess, Uranus or whatever, it's a lot harder it's easy to do that on a stationary island that's not going to go anywhere, where you have to charge up the beam and then drop it. On an island that's moving around, it's probably, especially in the sky where it's like out of sight of like, you know, people on ground level, it's a lot easier to keep Punk Records hidden and to keep it mobile so that it's not easy to take out. So I could see both those reasons, that Haradas and the knot thing, and like they definitely know something, and the moving island is another big fact. That's basically what I'm thinking. Like,
okay, and well, and I guess my question is like, for Weatheria versus the cloud that this is on. Like, I'm just trying to think of like what the advantages would be. I guess for one thing, you'd have people on Weatheria to guard it or like be aware of it at least. But because we know hold on, or maybe let me just do a quick Google search here. Because I always get so Weatheria is floating on a bubble, right? And Balloon Terminal is on the balloons, right? That's how So because I always get that confused, because obviously the balloon was on Weatheria with the fire in it, so I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I guess that's my thing, is like, so Weatheria floating on this bubble, like, is that maybe part of it? Like do the clouds that's holding Punk Records up, will those not like stay forever? You know what I mean? Like, will those, and so they need to take it somewhere that'll hold it up permanently? Is that maybe what's going on?
Yeah, because while they were on Egghead, they had a Cloud Island generator.
Right.
You know, but they don't have that now that it's detached from the island. So it could be that, it could be that they need that.
Well, and then let me bounce another question off you. Is the Mother Flame on this cloud, or is the Mother Flame back still on Egghead?
Well, did we get to see in the arc where specifically what building the Mother Flame was in? Because I get the tiny feeling that there was like some panels because Oda was showing the map of Egghead where certain characters were located, which building.
Right.
Is there anything indicating to us where on the island the Mother Flame was? Because that would answer the question.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back and look, but just what I remember is that it's kind of obscure because like Saturn, like because they're like talking about where it is, and they're like I'm gonna go for it or whatever, and then Saturn's just like in the room. And I'm trying to go back and look for it. But from what I recall, like I don't think we got a map of where it was, like because like where like he shows like the different levels and all that. But I think we got one before, and we're meant to like presume where the room was in comparison to that. But I don't think like while Saturn was in there, we didn't get one, I guess is what I'm saying. But like right before that we did, so I'm trying to go back and look. Because that's an important thing, right? Because if the Mother Flame is floating around with Punk Records, that really hurts.
It's not. I'm looking on the wiki right now. It says the flame itself is kept in suspension inside a giant reactor-like tank of undisclosed liquid, branded with the production code S108. This room is located on the first floor of Building B at Egghead's Labo Phase.
Okay, so his Labo Phase, Labo Phase is the upper part, right?
I'm assuming it's not part of the. Let's check this out, because if it's a building, right?
Because it's really hard. Cause if it's on the upper part, then it like that is the Labo Phase, right? Yeah, because the bottom's the Fabrio Stratum. Labo Stratum is the upper part, and Fabrio Stratum is the lower part. And then Labo Phase is like a specific section of the Labo Stratum.
Yeah. Wait, the Labo Phase. I'm looking. Okay, so on the wiki, it lists. I looked on Egghead. And it says the upper part is the Labo Phase, and below is the Fabrio Phase, Fabrio or whatever.
So that it should be with Punk Records.
It actually should be. It actually should be. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm going back.
The laboratory level, the Labo Phase, is within the giant egg that sits on the island cloud. That means the Mother Flame might actually be with them on the Punk Records.
That's wild, dude. And I'm looking at chapter 1114, which is when we see the Mother Flame. And yeah, because now I'm looking at the series of events. So that's when Saturn's up, like, climbing the cloud, and the crew are trying to stop him, and he bulldozes through them and goes to one of the buildings. So it is up there on the upper cloud.
Oh, man. I thought the Labo Phase was on the ground level. Wait. They might actually have the Mother Flame right now.
So that means the Mother... So I love that we brought that up because, and I said this during my stream, and this was actually my original theory on this weapon at Lelucia, is that I bet you York just, like, my whole idea was that York put part of the Mother Flame in an egg, just like Egghead, and made a giant weather egg and sent it directly to Lelucia on some clouds, because they already have the Cloud Maker. Because York even said in chapter 10 or 1089, I'm glad I sent it. Right? Like, can you make more of the Mother Flame? Oh, you do want more from me? Well, I'm glad I sent it, is what York said.
How do you send that, right?
Yeah, how do you send the Mother Flame to them? Some people have said, oh, maybe it's in a bubble or a balloon because we saw the Weatheria stuff. But for me, I'm like, what about a giant weather egg? We already have Mother Flame in an egg already, basically, and we've seen Nami use weather eggs throughout the whole story, and whenever Nami powers up the weather egg with Zeus, it's a massive lightning strike that looks very aesthetically similar to the Mother Flame. Like, if you go back to Whole Cake, whenever like Zeus was like eating a ton of the clouds and was like made dark clouds all above wherever Big Mom was, and a giant lightning strike came down, I'm like, that looks to me just like the Mother Flame, just a baby version. Yeah. And so my thought from the beginning was that York just made a giant bomb, essentially, right? Like, because if you make a giant weather egg like that, because a lot of people have been saying, oh, York sent them the Mother Flame, they put it into Uranus or whatever weapon they had, and then it shot, over Lelucia, and then presumably would have flown back to Marie Joie afterward. But in my head, I'm like, and even Vegapunk, when he brought that up, he was like, oh my god, my weapon, my power source has powered an ancient weapon, this is so terrible. I should see if the facts back up this hypothesis. As if like it's not, like maybe it's not true. Like, that's my assumption. And so that's why I think they don't have a weapon like that. It's just that York recreated it, which is a anti-Pluton parallel, right? Going back to Enies Lobby, they talked about making an opposing force for Pluton, and that was what the government were going after. The Gorosei specifically had a 15-year plan to get that. I think that like what we're seeing here might be like what York made is a diet Pluton, or maybe a diet Uranus, because I know everyone says Uranus, but if we're deleting an island in a single blast, I feel like that's Pluton territory. But regardless, made a knockoff ancient weapon, let's just put it that way. And then I think that was the bomb that blew up over Lelucia. And what we're seeing here, Punk Records, with the Eternal Mother Flame and the Aircon and all of this, that might be what Uranus actually is. Like, maybe this is now almost like a second Uranus, where maybe the original one, maybe Roger's egg, going back to this whole egg scenario, that could be Uranus, and maybe and maybe whatever hatches out of that has all the abilities that this thing has, but we're just seeing a mechanical version, basically. And so
are you saying Witheria is going to be like an ancient weapon tier location? Like, they're going to be able to use the power for something?
Yes, and
where?
And,
where would they blast?
Well, I don't think they want to blast, because that's the difference between York and Vegapunk, right? Like, you make this nuclear fusion, you can use it for good, which is powering everything really cheaply and efficiently and all that, and renewably and all whatever, or you can use it for weapons like nuclear bombs. And I think York is the example of, let me take a piece of that and blow it up, and that's what a nuclear bomb is. Where Vegapunk's like, no, let's keep it here and use it to power stuff. And so for Weatheria, going back to that flame in the balloon, I'm wondering if they bring the Mother Flame there in this whole Punk Records thing in the Aircon, and they're like, wow, we can do everything we ever wanted now. Like with like the wind knot thing. Maybe they can make like the craziest wind knot of all time now with this level of power. Maybe those little balloons with the flames, maybe they can start making Mother Flame ones where people can, I don't know, do crazy stuff. I don't know.
Put a giant like laser inside like a rope. They just do this and the Kamehameha comes out, like,
yeah.
Like,
dude, that look, Haradas top 30 next time.
If he does it, man, he flies up the list for me. If he's able to do that, and if he starts walking around with like ropes in his pocket, and he's like, oh yeah, come at me, bro.
Yeah.
And he's just like.
Even the Gorosei are like they're even like, oh my god, like they have more of them. It's like, nah, man, funny. Like this is just the Mother Flame. But yeah, and I guess to kind of cap that all off, I've been saying for a long time, and I don't know if you agree, but I know a lot of people have been saying this. Uranus is going to be tied to Elbaf in some way. Like it's either going to be there. We're going to learn about Uranus in that arc. That's mainly the takeaway. And with Elbaf having ties to Sky Islands, or at least the summits of High West, we presume, we don't actually know that, but the Atom Tree, Summit of High West, that's what everyone thinks. So if there are Sky connections to Elbaf, then maybe Weatheria heads over there and makes an appearance. And like, I'm not saying that they're gonna blast Elbaf, but maybe that's just where this is going. Maybe like they show up and then we meet and maybe this thing shows up, Punk Records with the Mother Flame and all that, and everyone's like, oh my god, that's an ancient weapon equivalent. Like, it could control the weather because of the aircon, and it can do these giant blasts and all that. Like, that's definitely an ancient weapon. But then maybe the real Uranus hatching from Roger's egg is over there on the side, and we like don't think about it till later. Like wow, that little dragon thing, whatever hatched from the egg, it can do everything this thing is doing. Because I would like that, because going back to the anti-Pluton thing, that the whole idea there was you were creating an opposing force, like something that is equivalent in strength to the original, so you can stop it. And so we haven't heard of an anti-Uranus. We've barely heard anything about Uranus. We've heard it mentioned one time from Neptune or Robin in the anime. Like, they were different, but regardless, I'm wondering if that, like, what we're seeing is he just made a second Uranus, but this one's just mechanical.
I believe it is Uranus and not Pluton, specifically because there were the lines in recent chapters that implied that the world government currently has one of the ancient weapons, which we know Pluton's in Wano. So it's not Pluton. We know where Poseidon is. Has to be Uranus. And the big reason that I believe this is because of Skypiea. It always comes back to Skypiea at the end of the day, with Enel and the Arc Maxim being an airship that allows him to nuke all of Skypiea with a giant laser beam, just like what we saw with Lelucia. And if we know anything about Skypiea, it's all like giving us the microcosm of the One Piece story, and Enel is a god, claiming to be a god, and he's just like a dude that is just really evil and convincing everybody to through fear to follow him, and then he nukes the city. Same way. And that's why I feel like if Uranus is anything, Uranus is the god of the sky in Roman mythology. It's an airship, some kind of airship of some kind that can drop death beams on location. So that's what the Maxim was. And,
But you know what else the Maxim was?
What?
A ship.
Yeah, it was a ship.
And we know that Pluton is a ship that can delete islands in a single blast. And so that's why I think, like,
but we know where Pluton is, though.
But the anti-Pluton, right? Like, if you go back to Water 7, Enies Lobby, where there's a hole in the ocean, by the way, just like Lelucia, so that, like, the symbolism's there. The entire time, until right before Frankie burns the blueprints, the assumption throughout that arc is that those blueprints let you build another Pluton, right? Yeah. So in regards to people saying, like, oh, this powered an ancient weapon, they've never said Uranus yet. They keep saying ancient weapon. And that's why I think it's an anti-Pluton situation, because that is exactly what the idea was in Enies Lobby, that those would let you make an ancient weapon. Now Frankie's like, no, it's not that you get to make another Pluton, it's that you get to make an opposing force, a countermeasure. That's why I call it the anti-Pluton. And so I think the government either has an anti-Pluton from the past and they just needed to power it, right? Because they don't have the original Pluton. And then with the Uranus idea, like, don't get me wrong, the sky stuff, it lines up, the Enel stuff, but we've heard one weapon can destroy an island in a single blast. I think it'd be kind of lame if Uranus does it too. You know what I mean? Like,
they should all mean a lot of things.
But that was a single blast. Like, that is the exact imagery you would expect for Pluton. And I just feel for Uranus, like weather control, that's like what people go to the most, right? Because that's powerful in its own way. You can destroy a lot of people and countries and, sailors especially, if you can just control the weather. And we know that with, like, the aircon here, that's already tied to punk records a little bit. So that's always been my thought, is just with the anti-Pluton, the Gorosei were already going after it. We have the whole Frankie Vegapunk connection. Vegapunk had his fingerprints all over Enies Lobby because we had Funk Freed. Vegapunk was mentioned by Kobe right after Enies Lobby ended. CP9, we fought CP9 in Enies Lobby, and then we fought them again in Egghead. So there's a lot of connections between the two. And so going back to my idea that York may have just put some of the Mother Flame in an egg, put it on a cloud, and sent it over. That, to me, would be almost equivalent to an anti-Pluton because, going to my Pluton is a mole theory, even if you disagree, if you wanted to destroy Pluton, you'd probably have to do what that weapon did, right? Because Pluton's underneath Wano. If you want to destroy it, you'd have to go, vaporize the entire island, right? You'd be playing whack-a-mole, like not literally. Even kidding. Yeah, like literally going around and just popping holes in all these different islands. Like, where the hell is this thing at? Like, I just need to get rid of it. And so I just think all of that matches perfectly with what we heard about the anti-Pluton. And if Uranus ended up fulfilling all those roles that were set up in Enies Lobby, it just feels weird.
You know what would also feel weird?
What?
A ancient weapon named after a specific god of a specific, like, nature, and then having a completely different, like, it would be weird if Poseidon was the airship, because Poseidon is the god we associate with the water, and then naturally the ancient weapon associated with the name Poseidon is one related to the sea kings and the ocean,
right?
So by the same token, I just feel like if you're gonna name your ancient weapon after, like, the god of the sky, it's gonna be something that attacks from above, right?
Oh, well, like I was saying, it just control the weather, right? It doesn't have to go up, like, because like Pluton itself should have the underworld thing, but if we're talking about anti-Pluton, like a knockoff version that can replicate, then I think you could put it into the sky because it's not the underworld god anymore, right? It's just a similarly powered thing.
Yeah, no, I guess I could see that. I don't know. I'm going back and forth on whether or not Uranus is in the world government's possession, or whether or not they have something else, and the actual Uranus is somewhere else. If it's not in Elbaf, then I'm just gonna assume that the world government has Uranus somehow.
At that point, yes. At that point, you'd have to.
Yeah, because it's like, what else could be doing that type of destruction?
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's my other gripe, is that, I mean, look, Oda could figure it out and cook, but I just think it would be really weird to set up a situation where these three ancient weapons were left behind for the good guys to use in the future, and even we've seen so far, at least with Shirahoshi, that they get reborn into the future, right? And like they're trying to like help the good, like they're good people and all that. And then for one of the three to be in the bad guys' possession, right? Because Pluton, you know, is still controlled by the good guys. Like they haven't broken it out, but like, you know, Wano, you know, they like Kaido never used it, and now the good guys are back controlling it. So it's like, okay, that one hasn't been misused by bad people yet. Shirahoshi has not been misused yet, you know. And then so for Uranus then to be the separate thing that was just kept in Marijois this entire time and has never gone away, that just, it feels weird because we're building up this idea of the ancient weapons are coming back. But if they've had it the whole time, it feels weird, right? So I hope they don't have it for that reason. But
it makes me, for me, it kind of works in a way where they didn't have them originally and they're trying to gather them. And it's the ancient kingdom's messages and all the clans that descended from them that are protecting the world government from getting all three. Because we know that in Water 7, they wanted Pluton as well. You know, they were like, give us those blueprints. If they had it their way, they would control all three ancient weapons, but obviously they can't. It might have been the reason why they enslaved fishmen to a degree, because they knew Poseidon would arise among the fishmen, and if they were enslaved, then they could control Poseidon by extension. So that could be why the fishmen have been enslaved for so long. It's not like they just hate fishmen. It's particularly because Poseidon will be born among the fishmen, and that's a threat to them.
And that's why Shirahoshi going up to the Reverie was a massive mistake, because
dangerous.
She almost got caught twice, right?
Yes, dangerous move.
And that goes back to Emeth attacking the Reverie 200 years ago, because my day one theory for that was, well, let's see, he woke up when the fishmen were about to rejoin the Reverie. He went there to be like, no, like, you guys cannot go to the Reverie, like, under any circumstance. If you guys join, Poseidon is cooked. Right, Poseidon is on the wrong side. You cannot do that. And so that builds to kind of what you're saying. Like, there's like these countries are like protecting the ancient weapons, like, you know, maybe like in indirect ways sometimes. But going back to Uranus, it would just feel kind of weird if Poseidon was kept safe, almost taken a couple times, but never got misused. Pluton never got misused, but then Uranus was up there the whole time. It just like, I'm hoping Uranus, you know, maybe was given to Roger, because if it's the egg, was given to Roger for safekeeping because he was the protector. And then maybe after he was done, he went and gave it to the giants because he's like, well, hey, you know, you guys are really strong too, and nobody visits here because it's so terrifying with all the wars. I'm just going to leave it here because you guys are good people, you know, and so maybe that's why we're going to go there and find it. And so, yeah, so I hope it's there. I hope it's an Elbaf.
Yeah, you know, two things. On the subject of Roger being given Uranus to protect, I think that would be a bigger risk than anything else, because, like, I think it would be better to keep it in some ancient isolated country than to give it to Roger, who's sailing around, because there's no guarantee he doesn't lose that at some point, or it gets taken from him. Well,
real quick, let me just throw in something to back that, to build on that. So if you go to Shiki in the Ed War, Shiki told Roger, I know that you know the location of an ancient weapon. Right, and it based off the timing of that, it almost has to be Uranus, because we know that he learned about Poseidon later with Odin. So we know he can't be referring to Poseidon, because Roger did not know about Poseidon until he got Odin. And then Pluton, well, Roger didn't go to Wano pretty much ever. Like, he pulled up on the shores to let Odin go in, but he never went there before that. So the only options here are that Roger somehow heard about Pluton while in Alabasta, which, remember, he couldn't read the poneglyphs yet. He did have Voice of All Things, but even as we saw at Skypiea, he didn't get all the information. He just heard, oh, it's speaking of a great power. So I don't see him going to Alabasta, looking at the poneglyph and being like, oh, it's telling me that Pluton is over in Wano, and that's what Shiki's talking about. That wouldn't make any sense, right? Because Roger had no way to read poneglyphs by that point. So the only way is if the royalty, like Cobra, if he was, Cobra probably would have been the king still. Unless Cobra told, you know, Roger, hey, Pluton's over in Wano, which we don't even know if he knew that. So I think it has to be Uranus. And so, and he also had the egg on the ship at that point.
Well, what about Poseidon? Because he was the one that heard Charlie's fortune when she did the fortune telling, when he went to Fishman Island, and he knew that the sovereign would be born in however long.
That happened after Ed War.
Oh.
Yeah. Ed War happened before he met Odin. And so Odin, because he learned about Poseidon with Odin. So we know it can't be Poseidon.
Interesting. That's a good point. I forgot about that line from Shiki. That's a good one.
Yeah, and so since Roger knows about that, Uranus is kind of the default. And since he had the egg on the ship, I just think Oda is the kind of guy to have that altercation between two greats where Shiki's like, where's the ancient weapon at? And it's right in front of him, and he didn't know because it's the egg on the ship.
I could see that.
And the reason why Roger would protect it, because Shiki's like, I know you know where it is. Maybe because Shiki was going for it, and the people, like, let's say the egg was in Skypiea originally, which is my guess. Maybe it was in Skypiea, and Shiki heard about that. Shiki has the float fruit. He'd be the #1 threat, honestly, to go up there and deal with it. Maybe the Skypieans were like, hey, Roger, this guy's coming for this. This egg is really important. It's actually like a god. It's an ancient weapon. We need you to take it and protect it. And that's why Shiki's like, hey, maybe Shiki went up there and they told Shiki, well, Roger knows where it is. And then he's chasing Roger and it's right in front of him. He just would never think the egg is the ancient weapon, right?
Okay, I could buy that. I could see that. That's kind of like an ironic thing that I could see Oda doing. Yeah. Could I ask you? I don't know if you were gonna get to this because it's a little bit later in the chapter, but this is relating to the Pirate King and the ancient weapons. There was a line in 1125 about with the revolutionaries at the end. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this. I think this is a very important part of the chapter that because of all the other crazy stuff that happened, everyone's kind of glossed over, and because the revolutionaries are kind of boring.
Yeah. Not for long.
Not for long.
Dragon's coming. But
like compared to all the other craziness on Egghead, like the revolutionaries are like a little bit of a boring aspect of the arc. But anyway, we have this line, Koala's talking, she goes, the Void Century covered up a massive war, and that culminated in ancient weapons tech, plunging the world 200 meters deeper into the ocean. Not only that, but the one who claims the One Piece will not only be crowned Pirate King, they'll likely get to wield that devastating power for themselves. And then Bello Betty says we can't let that happen. So I guess to tie it into what we were saying, Roger, the Pirate King, possessing one of the ancient weapons potentially, that could have some tie into what they're saying here. And then the other thing I want to ask you this. Their take on this, that the Pirate King is going to be able to wield this power and that they have to stop it. What does that mean for Luffy's relationship with the revolutionaries down the road? Because if Luffy wants to be Pirate King, Dragon's son, Sabo's brother, Sabo in particular, who knows Luffy's dream and knows Luffy's goal, if the revolutionaries determine that they have to stop the Pirate King from gathering the ancient weapons, is that going to put them and the Straw Hats on a crash course to have a conflict? What do you think is going to come out of that?
I think Oda's gonna have a lot of interesting twists there, but to simplify it, I think what's gonna happen is they're gonna eventually realize we're just gonna trust Luffy. And I know that sounds so basic, but I think like right now I don't think they would do it. Like even if Sabo wanted to vouch for him, I think they would still be like, hey, we can't let anyone control these things. It's too, I don't care who it is, like it's too risky. I think that's probably their take right now. But I do think that they're going to get to a point where it's like, okay, like Luffy, like everything's too crazy. Like the government has crazier powers than we thought. Like X, Y, and Z is happening. You do what you got to do. But as far as a conflict, like I think what's going to happen is Dragon and Luffy are going to meet and they're going to have a discussion. And it's not going to be where Dragon's like, hey, if you get the One Piece, you're going to be able to control all the ancient weapons and all that. Like, what are you going to do? Like, they're not going to have a super deep talk. I think Dragon's going to ask something like, Luffy, you never told me. What kind of world do you want? And then Luffy's going to say, I just want a world where everyone can eat or whatever, some Luffy line. And I think that's going to be enough where Dragon's like, all right, everyone, just let him, he's got it.
It's like the Rayleigh conversation in Sabaody, where Rayleigh's kind of testing Luffy and the Straw Hats, where like Usopp wants to know, where the One Piece is, and then Luffy interrupts him and is like, I don't want to know. Yep. And then Rayleigh's like, well, what are you gonna do, when you conquer the seas? And Luffy's like, I don't want to conquer anything. The King of the Pirates is the freest man in the world. And Rayleigh asking that question was probably him determining whether or not Luffy is worthy of his training and worthy of passing the torch.
Yes.
And with Luffy's answer, he was like, without telling us explicitly, he's like, okay, this is a good one. This kid, he's a good one. He's a good one.
And you think back to Shanks Rayleigh thinking back to Shanks, saying like,
Yep.
"Hey, Rayleigh, I met this kid in the East Blue. He said the same thing Roger said. You wouldn't believe it." Like that's how Luffy works. You know, he says just a little something that implies a lot of things to the person listening, even if Luffy isn't meaning to imply it. It's just, you know, they test him. So I think, like I said, Dragon's gonna say, "What kind of world do you want?" Or Luffy, what future do you see for this planet? Or something. Just generally, like, where's your mind at? And Luffy's just going to be like, I just want to give everyone food. And he's going to be like, you know what? Yeah, we're good. Like, we'll let you do it. But I do think it's going to start, until that conversation happens.
There will be conflict.
Yes. And so I want your thoughts on it. Do you think, do you see them, like, fighting at some point? Or what do you think is going to go down?
Yeah, I think, you know, I think there's a few possibilities. I could see Sabo, even though he loves Luffy, he knows Luffy very well. I think him knowing Luffy very well might have something to do with why Sabo might not want to trust Luffy with such incredible power. Because he knows the type of guy Luffy is. We know the type of guy Luffy is. You can make the most well-constructed plan imaginable that's like safe for everybody, that works for everybody, and then Luffy will do something to throw a wrench in the machine.
Yes.
And I think that unpredictable nature of his could lead Sabo to being like, well, despite the fact that I trust you, Luffy, and I love you, you're my brother, I can't trust you with a world-ending power. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's better off in the hands of us, who are willing to, who are more organized and ready to liberate the world and want to, we know we're using it for a good cause. I'm not exactly sure if what you want to use it for is in everyone's best interests. And, you know, Luffy said it himself, you know, he doesn't want to be a hero. The revolutionaries want to be heroes to a degree.
Yep.
Luffy doesn't. So he's still a pirate at the end of the day. So could they trust him with it? Maybe after some convincing. But even Sabo, I think, will need some convincing. When it comes to something of this magnitude, you know?
I do think the idea where Sabo knows his true dream, and maybe this will give us a hint for it. Like Sabo's like, Luffy, I know what you really want for this world. And I can't let you have this power if that's what you want, you know, because like a theory that I've had for his secret dream, and I mean I've several, but one just that is fitting here is like I think Luffy wants to like affect the sun in some way, like he wants to maybe like put his Jolly Roger on it, or put, you know, a red ring around it so it looks like a straw hat, or something. You know, you know, he's a 7-year-old kid. Maybe he says he just wants to take a bite out of it. I don't know, something like that. But just imagine if that's it, and he like wants to affect. Because the reasoning for that, by the way, is just that if he affects the sun, then everyone in the future will look up to the sun and be like, "Oh wow, someone made it there." And then Luffy's obviously the sun god, and it's like that's what that true dream would be. What makes him the sun god is he wanted to visit there. But regardless. Let's just say he wants to do that. If Sabo knows that, he's like, Luffy, I know you want to do some shit to the sun. I'm not letting you get these ancient weapons, because like if you destroy the sun, the entire universe is cooked. You know, like this planet is done for. If I I know what your dream is. I can't. We're all dead. But the way Oda would trickle that is probably like not telling us all that directly, but just hinting. You know, just saying simply, Luffy, I know what your dream is. I can't let you have those weapons. And then so we're left to believe what is it then? Like how is he gonna what's so dangerous?
That's the thing. It's like I think a big part of it is going to be what is Luffy's dream, right? Like what's the goal at the end of his dream? Because being Pirate King is only the first step that, you know, that's necessary for him to achieve that. I've heard an idea I liked is that Luffy he wants to make everyone a pirate. Like the entire world. He wants to make every person in the world a pirate. And it's like such a ridiculous concept, because it's like, why would you do that? What's even the point of that? But like, you look at what Luffy considers a pirate in his mind, and what he considers the Pirate King to be. The Pirate King is the freest man in the sea. So in making everybody a pirate, he's making everybody free. At least in his worldview, pirates are free people who can fly their own flag, who can set their own course. So making everybody a pirate, including the Marines, including everybody, would be like him putting everybody on an equal level and making everybody free and letting everybody choose their own destiny. And I think that could be like to the outside person who doesn't fully understand Luffy's mentality behind that, that might sound ridiculous. It might sound pointless, and in some cases, it might sound dangerous.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, for example, when Roger told that to Whitebeard and Odin, and when Luffy told it to Ace and Sabo, it seems like every person that hears this dream, and the Straw Hats too, they all have a somewhat different reaction to it.
Right.
So it's almost like whatever Luffy is saying for his dream kind of depends on your interpretation of it. It's not so much an obvious like thing where like, I want everyone to have food, because no one would listen to that and then be like, huh? Or then another person might laugh, and then another person might say you're crazy. These are wildly different reactions to something that I think is pretty cut and dry. If it's something like feeding everybody in the world, who would be against ending world hunger? No one would be against that. But something like, I want to make everybody a pirate, I want everyone to be a pirate with me, is like, someone might hear that and say, that's ridiculous, that's crazy. Another person might just laugh and be like, that's the most Luffy thing I've ever heard. Another person might hear that and be like, how would you even make that happen? Like, what, like, that's the type of dream that I could see having varied reactions and varying implications that, depending on who hears it, could take issue with it. And I could see that being the crux of maybe what causes the revolutionaries to have a problem with Luffy, at least temporarily. And I could see what, that's why Roger shared the same dream. That's why Shanks, like would talk about that so highly, because that's something that is a very unique idea to have, even for pirates.
Well, the reason I like that is if Luffy said, my second dream is to make everyone free, we'd all be like, Oda, the most anticlimactic thing ever.
Like obviously.
We already knew that. Like that's pointless. But like you're saying with the pirate, it's the same thing, but it has that little bit of extra Luffy context.
You can interpret that differently, and it makes sense because he's the pirate king. What if you wanted to make everyone in the world a pirate? What position would you have to hold in order to do that? You have to be the king of pirates, right?
And to build on that a little bit more, if the whole world floods, everyone's going to take to the seas, and everyone will be a pirate aesthetically in that regard because they're on a boat, and they'd probably all be like, wow, we really don't like the government for doing this, and Luffy the Pirate King would probably be like, all right, everyone, listen to me, let's go attack, like, let's go, or maybe Luffy gets captured and they all go save him, whatever the context is, but it's like, let's all go work together, let's the whole world sail together to go help Luffy. That would make the whole world pirates, even if Luffy's not trying, right?
Yes.
And so I kind of like that, where Luffy could maybe, like, if he's captured, he comes out, sees like millions of people, because also if the world floods, I brought this up in my Kobe video, if the whole world floods, well, guess what, everyone's a lot closer to Marijois, right? Like maybe they have an easier time sailing up there and getting up to the top, and so they can go fight everyone at the top of there.
That's a good point.
Or what if, going back to the four wolves, what if all the people just walk? Like, what if just armies of people are walking on all the wolves all the way to Marijois after it floods? Like, all right, time for this giant march. Like, there's a lot of ways where it could work. Or the idea that I've been saying is Laboon and all the other island whales will go eat the islands, and then they all just come up in island whales to Marijois, right? Like the Gorosei will use their voice of all things power and be like, okay, we can't detect any voices, they're all dead. And then the whales pull up and everyone's just in the whales and they all come out and attack like Trojan horse times a million.
Or, because they all have the scars on their head like Laboon, what if all of them at once start hitting the red line?
That
ramming
too.
Because they all have the scars. So that shows that it's not just Laboon that does that. Right.
What if that's how Fishman Island goes through the
collapses?
Because we presume that the prophecy with Fishman Island and all that has Luffy. It's probably because the red line's getting destroyed above it, right? That's like the simple go-to answer. And so what if it's the island whales trying to bring it down? I love that idea. Sign me up, all the island whales at once working together, and
maybe they command them. Like maybe they command them with Bing Sake, like playing the song to get them
Brooke.
to like.
Oh, stop. Yeah. Brooke is in Laboon playing Bing Sake.
Yeah, he's on top of Laboon playing Bing Sake, and all the whales come behind. They go and they meet Laboon, and they happen to bring Laboon back, and then they have all the whales together, and Brooke's playing the song, and they all boom into the red line.
Because remember, Laboon not only got separated from the Rumbar pirates, but the reason why he even befriended them is he got separated from his pod. And so having that full circle story where Laboon gets to see his pod again, and then they work together to bring down the Red Line, like, I mean, look, I'm like the #1 Laboon fan, so obviously I'm okay with this idea, but sign me up. Oda?
Yeah.
Approved. Please.
And I could think of ways to get Laboon over the wall, you know? Now that we have all these magical powers and Luffy can just Gear 5, like, do things to people by, like, touching them, I could see a way where he, like, slingshots Laboon to the other side, you know? Like, I could see a number of ways that,
Or... So I like the idea all the island whales work together, but Luffy could also rubberize Laboon, make him massive, and just let Laboon destroy the Red Line himself. Like, Laboon, I know you're tired of this thing. Like, let's bring it down, you know. And he just.
What if he just picks up the wall? What if he's just like, and he lifts it up,
pulls it down, even right, turns it to rubber and like, shrinks it, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Luffy rubberizing the Red Line is something I'm dying for.
Now that I think about it, it'd be pretty cool to see Luffy do rubber things to the Red Line itself, like using it like ropes in wrestling, where he like bounces off the wall and like bends it back and slingshots himself. What if he does like a thing where he like slingshots himself off one side of the Red Line to like ram into the other side of the Red Line, like across the entire planet, just like goes around in a slingshot, like.
That is an attack he's gonna use on Imu.
That'd be sick.
So, and actually, that actually reminds me of a theory that of mine. I'm sure other people have brought it up, but something that I think may be a little more relevant now with the recent chapter. Not 100%, but I've always thought that the monster that we saw after Thriller Bark was Imu, and because a giant thing had the red eyes, and like now that we know that the Gorosei transformed into these weird things and whatever, it would make sense that Imu is this giant monster out in the ocean. And as far as like, well, why is it going there? It's like, well, they already sent Kuma to go back up Moria to make sure that Luffy died, and that didn't happen. And I'm wondering, and with the Florian Triangle hiding things, it's like maybe Imu went there because nobody was going to see him, right? Because it was the Florian Triangle. Like if he turned into his zone form and was this massive creature and went out into the Florian Triangle, like that's the one place he can go in the ocean where nobody's going to see him, right? And the reason I bring that up is just in regards to Luffy slingshotting around, using the Red Line. Imagine Imu turns into the Thriller Bark monster, and so Luffy's like, well, I'm going to turn giant too, and so then it becomes just a giant boxing match, like in the ocean like that, which Luffy would have to not go in the water, obviously, because he'd be cooked, but...
Yeah, but, I like the idea. I think it could be, because, a lot of things go missing in the Florian Triangle. They get deleted, in a sense. And then there's also... what they're based off of, those giant things, are Umibozu. And the Umibozu are giant, like, sea monks that pop out of the ocean and shipwreck sailors and sink their ships. So, if Imu's this big anti-pirate, like, person who's contributing to the flooding of the world, I could see it very well being that those Umibozu are directly controlled or influenced by Imu, or are Imu in a way, like, yeah.
And you think about the heightened importance for Moria's powers, because, like I said, they sent Kuma there to back him up. Like, hey, you better not be losing. Like, this is too big of a deal. And then after he lost, they wanted Doflamingo to kill him after Marineford, right? And so part of me is wondering, like, was Imu going there just in hopes of like, all right, let me take out Joy Boy now. Let me get this. Let me make sure the Shadow Fruit doesn't go anywhere, because that's probably important in some way, shape, or form. But then, he just got there too late or whatever.
And does the Florian Triangle, am I misremembering it? Because I think Thriller Bark took place outside of the Florian Triangle. No? I think inside the Florian Triangle, isn't it so foggy that it's never sunny there?
Yeah, the Thriller Bark ended up going out of the Florian Triangle by the end because the sun, right? Because oars with Luffy's shadow in it broke the rudder and made the ship go out of there, which is a very Luffy thing. Like, take us to the sun, right? Like that's like this. Even when Luffy isn't fully Luffy, it's still like he's making the entity that's controlling him to take him to the sun, right? So, but yeah,
it's the one place the sun can't reach on the ocean, right? Like.
And that could be why, if Imu was the Thriller Bark monster, that's why Imu didn't finish the job, is Imu got to the edge of the Florian Triangle and was like, well, shit. People will see me now. We'll just figure it out later, I guess. Like, it's... Yeah. Because that all lines up to me. Like, it's just like, what else would it be? At this point, what... I'm sure Oda could figure something out, but for me, I'm just like, what? I just don't know what else it has to be Imu in my mind. But
and it's clear Imu can do stuff remotely. Imu doesn't
Yes.
have to leave Marijois to do things elsewhere, like what we saw with Saturn just now. Clearly,
Yep.
Imu's power can reach far beyond the red line and influence things, and suck away someone's powers. Maybe give power to something. Maybe Imu can put that dark magic into the water itself to create a giant, Umibozu sea creature thing.
Yeah,
So,
and that also goes back to something we talked about at the very, very beginning of the stream, which was whether the Gorosei have devil fruits or whether it's something else. And even if the wiki says they're devil fruits, we saw Jupiter eat the seraphim who were in sea stone bubbles, and we saw that if the bubble even touches you, you're cooked, right? Because the way sea stone, because I think a lot of people get it confused, but like whenever you're in the ocean, your powers don't cancel. You just lose power, like you're weak.
Yes.
Compared to sea stone, where if you're hit with sea stone, like you can't use them anymore. Like if you look at Law, he was activating Room in Wano, got hit with a sea stone nail, just like a tiny little bit of sea stone, and he couldn't use his powers anymore. Like they're gone, right? Until he removes the sea stone nail.
Yeah.
So the bubbles work just like sea stone nails, where like if you touch it, the powers are done. Like you're there's no power. Like you can move, right? Like because like you're not lifeless. It's just your devil fruit powers don't work anymore. So for Jupiter, if he had a devil fruit, he should have immediately de-transformed as soon as he ate those things, but he didn't. And you can also look at Topman, who was like about to jump in the water to fight Emeth before he got like punched back or whatever, right? So it's like he wasn't afraid of jumping in the water there. So for Imu, that giant monster looked like it was in the water, so I think that might, if you assume that thing is Imu, then that would be a hint that Imu also doesn't have a devil fruit. It might just be devil powers, right? Which is what I think. Like, the devil fruit powers came from somewhere, probably the underworld in some way. The Gorosei and Imu are probably just using those directly without needing to eat the fruit and get the, whatever the downside is.
Imu could have the ability to control certain things that happen in the ocean, including natural disasters. And this kind of goes back to Parvision, who had a theory about the knock-up stream being a result of Imu's intentional... like, for example, why did Shandora, this kingdom that obviously has a very strong connection to the ancient kingdom, why did that get launched into the sky? And then it went missing, right? Like you have an explorer who discovers this ancient mythical city, reports it to his king, and as soon as the knowledge that this city exists becomes public knowledge, all of a sudden it gets blasted into space, right? What convenient timing.
Well, what's funny about that is Parr's theory on that inspired me to go make my own Nolan theory, where I said it was the opposite. Because my reasoning is, if you go back to that arc, there's like the island is moving before Nolan ever tells anybody about it, right? Remember when Nolan got stuck in like the crevice, like there was already earthquakes going on the island and he got stuck? I think that was the knock-up stream trying to start, but it took forever to dislodge the island. And so then, but you would then still have to think like, okay, well, the timing is too coincidental. Like, what's going on? Well, if you think about Roger, who went to Laugh-Tale, they learned about the future, right? They learned about the past also, but they also learned about the future. They knew the flood was coming. Odin knew that somebody was coming in 20 years exactly to come save them, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm wondering, okay, well, did the people of the past also know a little bit about the future, which I think would be hinted by Laugh-Tale having that information, right? And so maybe they knew, okay, well, in 400 years we need that island to go up into the sky because they're going to find it, and so we got to time it up. And so but then the question would still be, well, what was the mechanism, right? How did that work? And we know, Cricket mentioned there's like little caves under the water that like have volcanic vents under it, and the steam builds up and it builds an explosion and all that, which that's like I think he said that's like the ongoing theory of it. I don't think he said like anybody's researched it. That's just what people are believing. And my thought on it is like, I think it would be super duper cool if whatever was used on Eni's lobby caused that to happen. And what I mean by that is like, if you assume that Eni's lobby and Lucia have their attacks going all the way down to like the seabed or the core of the earth, right? Like all the way down. Well, we see water, it's like a waterfall on the edges where the water's going down. So if that water from the ocean, and also like that water has to be coming back into the ocean somehow. I should start there because like we see the waterfall happening, and if that's true, like the sea level should be going down because like that water that's going down has to be re-entering the rest of the ocean at the same rate, right? Like, that's the only way that would work. And so the question is, well, if that water's going down, how is it getting back into the ocean? Like if it was just filling up, we'd already, like, Enies Lobby would be filled up already, right? So it's like, so that water has to be going down and then going somewhere and then back into the ocean another place. It's like
instead of refilling the hole, which means that there's less space for the ocean to be because now there's a big vacuum that's taken up that previous space, and thus the water level elsewhere goes up.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Because since the sea levels went up, that means that space is staying like a vacuum, right? Like that hole is staying there. Otherwise, none of this would work. And so my thought is that maybe let's just say it's anti-Pluton, Uranus, whatever, using the laser goes down to like the core of the earth, or right above the core of the earth maybe, where it's really, really hot. So then the seawater that's going down hits that hot seabed, turns to steam, and then that steam is maybe getting caught in other parts of the Earth's crust or whatever, because like that laser probably went deep into Earth's crust, so that water is turning to steam and fills its way through the cracks of the crust or whatever, and that's how it gets to the knock-up stream, and that's how the water comes back into the ocean. That's cool. Yeah.
I like that.
Reverse Mountain might be the same thing.
Yeah, I remember looking into Reverse Mountain and like how it could be possible that Reverse Mountain works the way it does. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a science guy, so my explanation is probably not the best. But I remember, in the story they give us the explanation about how water, how like riptides or whatever, like the streams that pull downward are created by like hot and cold water doing this circulation.
Right.
So that when this water, because I'm pretty sure it was said that Reverse Mountain is a winter island, if I'm not mistaken. So so like hot water reaches here, but then sinks, right? Or is that? I don't know. Like I said, not a science.
No, you're right. It's something like that. The different temperature waters are meeting and causing a reaction.
Causing a current, and then that current goes up the mountain because of the extreme temperature difference. Mm-hmm. And it kind of begs the question of like, where does such a temperature difference come from? Why, mountains are inactive volcanoes essentially. So why is it, like even at the sea level, why is it a winter island? What's going on there? There's obviously some more explanation to what causes Reverse Mountain, warm eddies, knock-up streams.
That's another thing.
Right? Like these are all, the warm eddy came just after Lelucia, and
is it a shock wave through the planet? You know what I mean? Like, is Lelucia on the opposite side of the planet exactly? And that's,
Yeah. What you're saying with the heat and the gas and the steam getting trapped kind of relates to the warm eddies as well, and we saw that as a direct consequence of Lelucia. Mm-hmm. So the knock-up streams could also be a similar explanation to that. I really like that, actually. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, because, like, and I mean, all love to Parvision. He might be right on it, because whenever I watched it, I was mind blown. But it's just, the more I thought about it, I was just like, the Ancient Kingdom set up all these things in advance, and I just feel like that it's almost like in their wheelhouse to do something like that. Like they left these ancient weapons behind. It's like, well, we can launch an island to the sky, and maybe it is all just coincidental and it's just fate, let Luffy or the good guys being lucky. It could be that too, but I feel like it could, like, for example, maybe before the Void Century was over, maybe somebody went down under Shandora and maybe even like drilled a little hole over to where Enies Lobby was, so the steam would go over there, right, or something like that.
Little by little.
Yeah. Pluton could have maybe helped with that if it really can dig. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be happy with either explanation. I mean, I'm also chill with the fact that maybe it was just a very unfortunate natural phenomenon. Mm-hmm. But honestly, any explanation for that we've just laid out, I think would be satisfactory to me, because they all use elements from the world that have already been established, ties things together. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I could see it. I mean, definitely, I think if there's one thing to be learned from this is that Imu, despite being isolated in the highest chamber of Pangaea Castle, is not limited. Imu's influence is not limited to that location.
Not at all.
I think that's something we can learn from this chapter, that like Imu is capable of doing things outside of Marijois without actually having to leave.
Yep.
So,
and you know, and I'm like going back to the Thriller Bark monster thing. Part of me is wondering, like, could Imu, kind of like how Luffy can shapeshift himself into different, you know, as large as he wants, or different, you know, like we have all, you know, water Luffy. We have a million kinds of different Luffys because he's rubber. He can stretch himself, right? And I'm wondering if Imu maybe can do the same thing. And you know, like the Thriller Bark monster could be Imu, but we also saw Imu as like a dragon thing in Marijois, and maybe Imu will also just become a giant, you know, entity or whatever, and him and Luffy are gonna fight in space. You know, like I don't think there's any limit on what Imu can do.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I think there might be a limit, and that limit being what Nika or Joy Boy can do that Imu can't, which is how he's gonna win at the end.
Yeah.
And I do think this comes back to what we were saying earlier with the imagination. I think Imu's power is limited by what already exists, and the key to defeating Imu is going to be with using imagination and the freedom of imagination to come up with something that can actually defeat Imu. And I think that's what it's going to come down to, because it's the same reason the world government can't make their own unique ancient weapons. They have to copy what was already made. Imu cannot create, because if Imu's power was limitless, Imu could just create ancient weapons that are not even the original three, just create new ones. But Imu can't, and the world government is desperately trying to get their hands on the creations of the ancient kingdom. So they can only copy, they can only imitate and warp and manipulate what already exists. And I think that's going to be the key to defeating Imu, is something new that Imu can't just copy, and that only Joy Boy would be capable of doing. So I think that's where it's going to go. I think that's where, like, if they're both super powerful, the limitation is going to be there, and that's what's going to win the good guys the battle at the end.
Well, and that also leads, I feel like, into the whole thing about how, like, who the final villain really is, because like I see your argument, but I could also see the same thing but with Blackbeard. Like I could almost see like a combat triangle, like with RuneScape. Like maybe, you know, like Blackbeard can beat Imu can beat Luffy, and Luffy can beat Blackbeard, or some, you know, some combination thereof, and there's some, I don't know how Oda's gonna, you know, figure that out, but yeah, I can't wait for what you know, whatever Oda's cooking.
I think that's one of my biggest questions, is what the order of events is going to be by the end, because we have like two simultaneous plot lines with the world government and the Blackbeard pirates both being villainous entities that have different goals, and Blackbeard's goal directly relates to replacing the world government in a way, becoming king of the world. So it's like, what order do we tackle these villains in? Because you know, like something's in the works here, and it's not clear whether or not Imu's going to be the end goal, or Blackbeard's going to swoop in last second like he always does after Imu's defeated to then enact his final part of the plan, and that's when we beat him. Or do we see him at Laugh Tale, and do we fight him there? It's like, it's hard to tell at this point, you know?
Because Imu, to me, is like obviously him and Blackbeard are both, if we assume Emu's a guy, but him and Blackbeard are obviously both like that level, like capable of the final villain spot. But I also don't, when I think about Luffy fighting Imu first and then Blackbeard, or Luffy fighting Blackbeard then Imu, I see issues with both. You know what I mean? So I'm very confused on what it's going to be. The main thing for me is that Blackbeard, to me, is trying to do what Imu did back in the day. I think Blackbeard's taking a very similar path, and now the question just is, like, how does this end? Is Blackbeard gonna get controlled by whatever is controlling Imu? If we assume that Nerona Imu was a human king that got controlled by the devil, or a devilish entity, is that what Blackbeard's gonna do? Does Blackbeard want to be controlled by that, but maybe he can manipulate it because of his power?
Right. I was about to say, it could be that he wants to do the controlling, and he's different from Imu in the sense that he has the Yami Yami fruit. So he can possibly absorb that entity or power out of Imu's body using the Yami Yami fruit, and then try and control it himself.
Yep.
So
that's my current theory on it. I might do a video. I'm sure people have brought it up, but I'm just, because like he said that, like whenever he was fighting Ace, he said like, I can touch your true body, or like your devil's body, or whatever, right? Like I can touch the devil part of you and cancel it. I'm wondering if for Imu it's the same thing. Like he can just bring Imu in, and Imu's like, whoa, I'm not like devil fruit powers and devil powers might just be adjacent in terms of Blackbeard's darkness fruit. So
yeah, It's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see the details that Oda gives us to, before we get there, I want to see how well he sets that up.
It has to be perfect to make that fit. But well, maybe we can talk about that in a future redacted video. Sure. I'd love to have you back, but I think this is I think we're past the 2-hour mark, so we're gonna wrap it up. But Hidden, do you have anything you want to let everyone know? Any videos to plug? Because I know you've been pumping out some content. So
yeah. Well, first off, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's always fun talking with you. I love that we're able to come into a conversation with sometimes completely opposite or different theories, and then we can develop each of our own theories just by like talking it out. I think that's just something that is just really fun about discussing One Piece, and I'm very grateful that you gave me the opportunity today to do that for you and your viewers, and I would love to be back. As for my channel, I just want to say to everyone, because I've kind of been gone for like the past 4 months. I'm sure a lot of you out there that are watching this that are my fans have been waiting around for me, and I just want to say I do really appreciate the patience that everyone has had with me. It has been a very, very long summer and a long year for me. I'm glad to be back. I'm back in the swing of things now. I feel like I'm just on a roll with like the One Piece theories. I'm just like back where I used to be, almost, and it feels good. And I'm glad to be back. Thank you for everyone that's been waiting. I do have another video in the works right now. I have 2 videos in the works right now, actually. If you guys haven't seen my content lately, or if YouTube hasn't put it on your homepage, I do have a bunch of new shorts up. I'm doing shorts now. I put up a new video talking about the Queen Frankie thing just the other day. And I have 2 videos on the way right now. I'm doing a Jolly Rogers video. So for those of you that liked my video where I went over every ship in One Piece, this is going to be like a spiritual successor to that, where I talk about every Jolly Roger in One Piece. I have that in the works, and I have another video in the works about the Gorosei right now. Title is, as you can guess, the greatest Gorosei theory ever made. If that sounds hype to you or exciting, keep an eye out. I think that might be the next video I make, because this past day or two since this chapter came out, my mind has just been rolling. The Jolly Roger thing I can talk about anytime. That's not gonna that subject isn't that's a timeless subject. This one though, I'm kind of gonna just seize that fire while I have it and try and cook up a nice hot piping hot spicy theory for you guys, and I hope that's gonna come. My goal is to get that out next week, so keep an eye out. That's on the way. And like I said, thank you to everyone who's been patient with me. I'm back. It's good to be back. It's good to be talking with Dak and Zach signing out.
I was just about to say that, bro. I don't know if he wants me to say it, but I'll say it and I'll delete it if he doesn't want me to.
No, I'm good. I'm chilling. Yeah. My Twitch has my name on there now, so I'm fine.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Well, everyone, thanks for watching the Dak and Zach attack. It was a great stream, and seriously, go check him out. I talked to Hidden a lot, even off camera, so I know what he's cooking to a good degree, and y'all should definitely check him out. And yeah, man, it was good seeing you, Anime NYC also. I feel like all of us left there with a lot of new inspiration. And then it was funny, we had Anime NYC, and that was really fun. We got a lot of inspiration, and then we come back. We had 1124 over that weekend, but then the next chapter is 1125, and it's super peak. And I feel like all of us have like a surge of motivation right now, a surge of ideas, and so yeah, definitely tune in when we're dropping stuff, guys. There's a lot of stuff coming. So
Anime NYC was like a renaissance for me. That was like a big renaissance moment. That was like seeing everybody, talking to you guys about One Piece, having a good time, seeing 2 people that weekend hit 100K.
Yeah,
Parvision and Chestnut,
which is amazing. Congrats
to them, by the way. Awesome. And yeah, it was just like a big renaissance moment for me. I was like, all right, we're so back. We're so back. This chapter that dropped, I've been avoiding doing chapter reactions because I enjoy the story a lot more in my own like comfort and privacy. But I almost regret not reacting to it because I was screaming at my monitor when I was reading it. I was losing it this chapter, and I was like, man, Oda is not done. The arc's over, and we still got more to come. Next week is going to have to be crazy. I mean, we're doing the intermediate segment between arcs,
which is always the best, man.
It's always the best. So if this is the first chapter of the transition phase, what are we in for the next handful of chapters? Next week's going to be crazy. So guys, get ready. One Piece is in full force and full effect right now. The drive is there. I'm just glad to be a part of it. Very excited. So
the community is on fire right now, man. From creators to fans to Oda himself to we got the live actions coming. We got the remake coming. It's just look, One Piece is taking over. All right, I actually have been thinking about doing a video about this in regards to like. Y'all, like when we get to the end, it's going to be a global spectacle. Like everyone's going to be we're all like the world looking at Vegapunk's message. That's going to be us looking at Luffy getting the One Piece. That's like what my video focus kind of wants to be is like when we get there, we're all going to be watching the same thing at the same time. Maybe Shueisha will even drop the chapter digitally first because they, don't want people to get spoiled or whatever. Like it's going to be amazing, man. I can't wait.
You seen like during the World Cup or like 4th of July where people run around like waving the flags of their country or whatever, and like people drive around with the flag hanging out of their car. I guarantee you, man, like when the final chapter drops and the story's over, I am going to be going around New York City just waving the straw hat flag like, yeah, let's go. Times Square is probably going to have some Luffy thing on there. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be good.
It is going to be. It's going to be special. It's once in a lifetime, and maybe even beyond that, once in a several generations thing to have a story this big. Like imagine the Super Bowl, but everyone cares, and they're all rooting for the same team. You know what I mean? Because the Super Bowl's huge, but like that's mostly the U.S. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like
it's like a global thing.
It's gonna be a global Super Bowl where we're all rooting for the same team, and it's gonna be crazy, man. So
it'll be good.
But and it'll be fun to talk with you and all the viewers here over the course of the next few years, few years, 8 years, 10, however long Oda takes,
decade,
whatever it is. But but all right, we're signing out now. So thank you all for watching. Really appreciate it, and y'all have a good one.
See you guys.